Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to All Politics are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics are Local. Well, today is, of course, the um, the Payne report, which comes on with Congressman Payne later this evening. But we're going to have some conversation today with a number of candidates, and so we're going to have some conversation with them. So Zaid, of course, my name is Ed Riley. I'm one of your hosts, and Brother Zaid is also one of your hosts. Zaid, you want to give the lineup? Who's going to be up first? Who we're going to talk to?
In our first hour, we have three candidates who are in local elections in their respective communities, three very important but very different New Jersey communities outside of the greater Newark area that we want to take a look at. One is Carol Ruiz, who's running for alderman, and that's a loaded term that needs to be addressed in its own way. In Dover, New Jersey, Dover is one of those crossroads communities in the very wealthy Morris County area. Then we have Atalaya Armstrong from Trenton, running for the Westwater Trenton, and we have Felicia Simmons running for mayor of Asbury Park, one of New Jersey's key shore towns. So we got some very interesting grassroots candidates running for elected office in their respective local spaces in the first hour. Early in the second hour, we have a tribute to the late Reverend Calvin Butts that's going to be done by our own Conrad Tillard. And then we'll also have, of course, we have a conversation with two young voices from the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice who will be talking about voting rights. And now Patel, they're expert on voting rights, and Yannick Wood, who's helped marshal us on a odd bill that has come through the state legislature that we've got some concerns about that is allowing policing at the polls. And then, of course, as you already acknowledged, we will close out with the Payne report because it is the first Friday of the month. So that's the lineup for this evening. That's how we're going to get down.
And of course, we have Miss Ruiz, who's going to be up first.
Right,
Uh,
right.
and Zaid, before we bring on our guests, I just want to I want to just give kudos to the city of Newark and to all of to Keisha Yuri and all of the street teams that came out to help out
Yesterday,
what was going on
a couple
in
of
our
days.
city. Yeah.
Yes,
So I
yes.
want to give a big shout out to the mayor because there was a lot of communication. There was a lot of um, stuff being said online that wasn't necessarily true about what was going on in the city. And so we want to say that obviously, sort of like the mayor said, one of the big things is that no one lost their life, right? The police officer didn't
Absolutely right.
lose their life. The brother who is alleged to have shot them didn't lose his life, right? So he's going to have his day in court. So for all of them, I mean, just really, really a great job.
Violence intervention folks came out and helped stabilize the streets, and the community actually came out in a way that's very different for a situation like that. Usually in situations like that, community people scatter,
Yeah,
right? And in this situation, the community came out, which is a courageous moment. Might not have been the best thing to do militarily either, I got to say that, right?
yeah,
But it was absolutely courageous for that neighborhood to come out and say, what's going on? What are we going to do? That was a courageous moment for our community in every aspect of every link of who was supposed to be working together at that particular moment did. And
yeah,
that's something we ought to appreciate. So I'm glad you lifted that up
yeah,
as we get ready to get into our next segment.
yep, absolutely. So we want to welcome our guests. Welcome her to the show.
Carol Ruiz. Now, this is going to be a trip for me.
What an honor.
This is going to be a trip for me because I have to act like an objective reporter, and I ain't never been an objective reporter. And our co-founding producer is probably going to be cussing me out. This Jonathan Alston, who's not here, who usually manages these kind of conversations. But I'm being fully transparent. All right. right? And you already got a shout out. We ain't even started yet. Daniela Menendez says Dover is in the building, right? And you absolutely are. And you're in the building with somebody that I'm very proud of. I have to say this too, just as I introduce Carol in this way. The three guests that we have coming on, I have met in the context of grassroots organizing, right? In fact, in a context of very difficult grassroots organizing, the whole question around police accountability and police reform work, right? A tough space, right? But each of these young women, I'm very proud of. I'm saying that personally. I'm not making an official endorsement here. All politics hasn't done that. Y'all know where I stand, but I'm just, for the sake of transparency and trying to offer some semblance of objectivity. I think that kind of background and transparency is absolutely important, right? Carol, let me, and as opposed to me introducing you in the way that I'm known for introducing our candidates, I'll start with a very basic, open, leading question. As a lawyer, I know you'll get that, right? But Carol has been on the Board of Education for in Dover. She's I met Carol through an organization that has done some great work in that area in the Morris County area called Wind of the Spirit, right? Has done some great work around immigrant justice and social justice and police reform, right? So it's in that context that she does what she does, and we do what we do, right? So, Carol, first I want you to do this. I want you to tell us about who Carol Ruiz is. Who is Carol Ruiz? Why are you trying to do this stuff that a lot of folks are probably calling you crazy for trying to, you're not an in the box kind of candidate. You're a genuine grassroots candidate, breaking out of the box and challenging some other stuff that's happening in the box as well. And you've done it in a way that has gotten a whole lot of respect. And that's why you are where you are at this particular stage of your own development in your own public work. Tell us about who you are, your background, your organizing background that brought you to this moment. And then we can get down and talk about the nitty-gritty of your campaign if you want. So tell us about who Carol Ruiz is in her own words, in her own way.
Thank you, Baba Zaid, for such a broad question. And I do want to echo Mr. Riley. Shout out for Newark. Newark is our city, and Dover. We are because, or I am because you are. Dover is because Newark is. There is a direct line from the Puerto Ricans and the African American folks in Newark that rose up and moved on up after the white flight in Newark came to become homeowners in Salem Village, in Dover, and Victory Gardens. So y'all are in our hearts and in our prayers. To answer who I am, within this context of all politics are local, I'm a resident. I've grown up in Dover and did not have the legal authority to vote. I was not a U.S. citizen. And I grew up very much afraid of the police, of being undocumented, of being deported. I grew up with that inferiority complex of I'm a Latina, English is not my first language. I dropped out of high school. And it was the immigrant rights movement, the social justice movement, the racial justice movement, the economic justice movement, the environmental justice movement. All of that is what reminds me that no, we have the power. And yes, the vote is important. It is of utmost importance. But whether or not you can vote, whether that right has been taken from you, we still owe it to our ancestors who died for that right to fight and use our voice in any way that we can. And with mentors and leaders like folks like Baba Zaid in Newark, learning through what the Black Panthers have done here, what the Brown Berets have done, learning about those that came before us, and my obligation and my duty to continue that work in any little way. That's who I am. Just a vessel, just somebody that answers the call. I do believe in God and believe she works in mysterious ways and puts me where I need to be, whether that is
Bad sister, ain't she? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, please, because I'll talk
I
your
told
ear
you y'all
off.
give me some laughs with my objectivity.
So running for elected office was just that next place I was called to be. The power is not in the elected officials. The power is in the people, and it is a difficult transition for me, being on the board of ed or hopefully now on the board of aldermen, making decisions, and that board is absolutely problematic. Working to change it. That we were freeholders before, and with freeholders in the that was changed to commissioners. So absolutely it needs to change in Dover, and it will. And I have not been leading that that fight. I have really been working on just to fight for affordable housing and fight for racial justice and reform in our policing. And there have been some changes in the police department in New Jersey. There have been very small changes in New Jersey as a whole, and Dover specifically. The racial justice movement really pushed for bail reform, which of course we called criminal justice reform, not bail reform, but it's the common term. And that starts at the local level. Right. You don't get to the AG, you don't get to the governor if you're not building that grassroots and connecting with people. While certainly social media and television helps, you really got to start at that local level, which is why I'm so grateful that you do this podcast at the show, that all politics are local, because a lot of times we don't want to vote. We don't even know who's running for board of ed and who's running for council. But that's where the decisions that affect our lives are made.
You dropped out of school?
Oh, yeah.
You got to be a lawyer woman? How you do that?
Because the system doesn't meet our needs. So I was smart enough to be a lawyer, but I didn't have the mental health supports to get through school, through migration trauma, through poverty. I didn't have the supports of a well-funded school. So yeah, I dropped out, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't go on. And I had mentors that made sure that I did, that made sure that depression or no depression, poverty or no poverty, access or no access, you are going to do what you were called to do.
So how has that informed what you have done? You're on the Board of Education already. You've got this incredible social justice profile. How has that experience at that pivotal, difficult point in a young person's life? A person's life can be made or broken at that kind of pivot. How were you able to do that? That's a story in itself. I did not know that. That's a hell of a story. I got to let you unpack that for a minute.
I didn't do it alone. I had Diana Mejia, who is one of the co-founders of Wind of the Spirit, Eduardo Lopez, who is the founder of Escucha. I had leaders who, dragged me kicking and screaming out of the restaurant where I was working and said, no, you're going to college. And well, I can't, I'm undocumented. I don't have financial aid. I'm poor. My dad's in Colombia. There was all these issues, and it took a long time. I would have graduated Dover High School in 1996. That's when I dropped out. So while my peers were in college, I was fighting that struggle, that immigrant rights struggle. And it wasn't until after 9/11 that we were able to change laws about tuition equity, so that other youth didn't have to go through what I went through. But the way that informs me is when I think about policy and when I make decisions on the Board of Education, I am not just thinking about those students that are going to Ivy League schools. I'm thinking about the students that have dropped out of high school and what are we doing to meet their needs? Because if we meet the needs of the most vulnerable, whether that is in our community, whether we're making sure unhoused people have housing, or in schools, that we're making sure that those in danger of dropping out have the supports that they need to succeed, then we're all okay. And that it comes down often to budgets and funding. And right now in Dover, we're fighting a contradictory fight where the town is looking to approve more pilot agreements. Those are payment in lieu of taxes. It's one of those, all politics are local. We should all know what a payment in lieu of taxes is. I'm sure if you're from Jersey City, you know what that is. Certainly us in Dover, we're learning the hard way what that is. It's a way to create more housing, often market rate housing in places like Dover, where allegedly the Mount Laurel affordable housing requirement has been met. So now they build these fancy apartments, but they don't have to pay taxes for 30 years. So it doesn't fund our schools. Or at least the funding for schools isn't coming from those developers, from those developments. So that's what my story does, right? So because I'm an immigrant, I think about immigrant rights issues. Because I grew up knowing, my history, that my great grandmother was an enslaved woman, that her son, my grandfather, had to fight for his land in Colombia, not the United States, but those stories are parallel. And that informs the decisions that I make today, seeking out that history, the connection between Newark and Dover, that informs my decision. So, it's coincidence, right? But the current mayor, it's Newark Forward, right? And I didn't know that was part of the logo when we decided on Dover Forward, but I thought it was a great, beautiful coincidence that we are looking to move our people forward and make sure that we are the ones making decisions.
And Ed, you're gonna have to discipline me on time, because I can go off with something like this. I'm gonna tell you right now, right? Now I gotta ask you this, right? And I've been dying to ask you this, right, in this particular medium too. Now your family's from Colombia. You laid that out. You mentioned your family heritage, right? Colombia just had a profoundly groundbreaking election recently, right? How does the big picture, the international picture, inform where you're at and where you're trying to go in Dover?
That I couldn't have asked for a better question. So, it gets me a little angry. So bear with me. All right. So Colombia has been governed by a far-right government for my entire life, and even before that, for over 60 years. And we just elected our very first Black woman as vice president, and the two, Francia and Petro, are the first leftist government that we've ever had in Colombia. And there is a lot of fear mongering about, they're gonna, they're communists, they're gonna take everything. That's Colombia. Well, Dover and Victory Gardens together, Victory Gardens is right next door to Dover. We have the biggest Colombian population per capita in the entire United States. So when Colombians were fleeing the war in the 70s and the 80s, and when my family came, and even today, Colombians are coming, they're coming here to Dover, to Victory Gardens. And so what does my opponent in the primary do? Democrat primary now, borrows the tactics of hate and of the Republican government, and starts fear-mongering on the Colombians, talking about, Carol's a communist, right? I'm on the Democratic ticket, and really just trying to convince people that I'm a communist because I fight for racial justice, because I'm Colombian, because I supported Petro. I voted for him, and have no fear or shame about it. I learned after I dropped out of high school, after I struggled with mental health, that's something that my mentors really instilled with me. Sin papeles, sin miedo. We will not live in fear because we are undocumented. And now I just, I'm a human being, so I'm afraid a lot, but I won't live from that fear. And if being accused of being a communist because I fight for our people's rights to housing or to education, call me a communist. Call me whatever you want. But I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to stop fighting. And I I'm confident that with the support of all the people that make up Dover Forward, that we will win this election in November. But if we don't, you'll still see me at those town meetings, and I'll still keep fighting for affordable housing and for equity and for not just the Colombians in Dover, but all the people of Dover to really be able to progress.
Ed, you want to jump in?
Well, I think one of the things I wanted to ask her was, well, two things. One, first off, is there a large Colombian population in Dover?
Absolutely. It's the largest immigrant group. Dover is, the census, there's all funny business with the census, so it's not accurate. But Dover is probably about 80% Latinx community right now. Many of us are from Puerto Rico, from Colombia, from Mexico, from Central America, and the Colombians are probably the largest group and certainly the largest voting bloc. And many of the Colombians, my father included, they're from that old school and they'll vote right wing. My father did not vote for Petro; he voted for the other guy. So they were really trying to feed into that division, that polarization that we see worldwide, right, nationwide, but also
very reflective of what happened with Cubans coming into this country. That's right? The same playbook.
That's why we got to know our history. It repeats itself.
And so does the council reflect that? Does the police department reflect that? Does the school system reflect that? Does the city in of itself reflect that population?
That's what we are striving for. When I became a Board of Education member, I won that election in 2016. The Board of Education was majority white. Despite the community being, we're one of the most segregated school districts in the state. The last count, less than 6% of our students were white. Over 94% of our students are Black and Latinx and other students of color. So starting in 2016 to today, we have revolutionized that Board of Education. So now it reflects our community. We have a woman on the board. We have several Latinas on the board. We have the first transgender woman on our board. So we sought to do the same with the Board of Aldermen as a community, and the Board of Aldermen is reflective. So we have Puerto Rican aldermen, we have women aldermen, we have Dover's first Black woman mayor, who is a board of who is our mayor and was a former alderwoman. What we don't have is the progressive policies that were promised. What we don't have is affordable housing for everyone. What we don't have is a fire department or a police department that is reflective of our community. So we've made some steps, and we've got plenty more to go.
And what is the population, the total population in Dover?
We have about 20,000 residents. Again, the census, the count it's difficult. A lot of our residents are living in basements, in attics, crowded in bedrooms. So it's difficult to have an exact count.
Well, you know what? We're out of time, but man, she there's a lot we need to get into with her. You know what I mean?
I'm here to tell you there, brother Fowler.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I didn't get a chance really to get in. Donna, as we go, as we wind up with Carol, why don't you ask her our ritual question for everyone else? But I want just one last thing, Carol, before she does that. I can see it, and everybody can't see it, right? Dover Forward, Palante Dover, right? Tell everybody,
I gotta move
tell
this
everybody
way.
what that means.
Palante and Sulang in Tagalog. So the movements in this country for immigrant rights have started often on farms, and the farm workers movement, both the Latinx folks and the Filipinos use that call Palante and Sulang to move forward, to really bring the people up from oppressive labor practices, and just generally in the Latin community, Palante means, we're moving forward, we're going, you're not stopping us. So, Dover Forward, Palante Dover, Dover essentially mean the same thing. So it fits perfect for our movement.
Well, and for everybody's benefit, there's a great film on the Young Lord Party called Palante.
Yes.
Right. the
Required
Boricua
viewing
story
in
that,
my
yeah.
house.
Oh my God, yeah. So I just had to lift that up. Donna, go ahead and ask the question. Ask,
Well, Zay, what I want to say, you said one film, but it made me think of another film, which is a comedy where Richard Pryor plays an organizer. I can't think of that movie, but it is in a mainly down in Florida, I believe, and it was a Latino community, and that he was organizing. And why it is funny, there's still a lesson in there in the power of the movement. So, you can get it from a comedic aspect or from a documentary. But I apologize for being late. But you're on All Politics and Local, which is a hip hop political show. So we always ask our guests, what hip hop artist, individual, or group are you listening to? And especially when you're doing your work that keeps you inspired.
Oh, wow. So when I'm doing my work right now, I often listen to Rebel Diaz because they're local.
love that little brother.
Right? So
Love that little brother. Know him well. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So and yeah, Rebel Diaz has come to Jersey. They've come to Newark. I haven't been able to get them to Dover.
Oh, Blue Collar. I forgot about that. I'm sorry, you put it in the chat.
Yeah.
That's the name of the film that Donna's referencing. I forgot about that film. Good share, Madam Councilman. Good share. So I'm interrupting. I'm sorry. Finish up.
Yeah. So when I'm really trying to go in, I listen to Rebel Diaz, but I'm a 90s hip hop woman, girl. And so when I am just trying to come back to myself and remember myself, it's Biggie, it's Farside. It's the music of my youth that really grounds me, and a lot of salsa as well. The salsa choque, which is a Colombian fusion of hip hop and salsa. Now I listen to that a lot. So those are probably, that's my soundtrack. That's my political soundtrack.
Right on.
I think you just gave us a whole mixtape. Okay, I hope our DJ is listening. Thank you very much.
We want to definitely thank her for being on. We got our other guests in the background. So Zayed, you want to thank her, and let's move
Carol,
on.
thank you. Right on. I'm proud of you. Right. Good luck. Right. And I'm definitely going to have you back. Okay. We want to do this for a minute. Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you, Baba Zaid. And I'll be
All right.
listening to all the speakers and learning from you all. I hope to see you again.
All right.
Right.
Thank you so
You got
much.
Sandra
Thank
Whitney,
you
all
again. Have a blessed
shout outs
one.
on the air already. You got to know that too. All right. All right. All right, y'all. Beautiful, beautiful. Good start. Good start. Good start. All right. Okay. And here's somebody else who should have been on the show a long time ago too. But y'all, you young folks get busy and get important. Y'all can be hard to get hold of sometimes. Atalaya Armstrong, Trenton, running for the Westwater, Trenton, New Jersey, the state capital. Right.
Mhm.
Big deal. And this is not your first time running for office, right? But it is clearly the most visible of your campaign so far, right? Someone else who I had met in a social justice context. She's very close and a member of the People's Organization for Progress, right? Has a passion for a number of issues, and one that we don't spend enough time on, and we do spend some time on here in this platform. And that's, of course, the question of reparations, and it has been a part of our state coalition around police reform, the Jersey Communities for Accountable Policing. It shows up some critical places where she shows up. Let me ask, I'm going to have you do the same thing that I had our last guest do. I'm not going to just give you the big introduction that I do our guests. In the interest of letting everybody know who you are, I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us your story, who you are, what you're doing, and how your story brought you to this moment to decide to run for office, and what the community needs to know about who you are and what you're trying to do.
Okay, first off, just thank you all for the opportunity to come on here and chop it up with you guys. I am a community advocate and activist. My advocacy is deeply rooted in equity, equality, and justice for all. That's who I am at my core. That's how I advocate.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got a bad connection. Let's start again because I missed the part where she said her name. So let's start again. I didn't hear that.
Okay.
You all right, Atalaya. That's tech stuff on
But I'm
host
glad
side.
she brought that up because you're mispronouncing my name. It's Atalaya.
Atalaya, I'm sorry. We've been messing that up for the minute. I'm sorry. All right.
So I'm Atalaya Armstrong, and I'm a community advocate and activist in the city of Trenton. My advocacy is deeply rooted in equity, equality, and justice for all. As Zai stated, I worked on various policies nationally here in the state of New Jersey and locally here in my city of Trenton. This passion of advocacy started with the birth of my daughter. I have a 27-year-old who is active Navy. And I started out in the education field, advocating around making sure that the children have everything that they need in the public school system. And if anyone has dealt with the public school system, you know that there are a lot of issues within that system, and children need educational advocates. So during that time, I became a court-appointed special advocate, and I would go in and advocate for children. And that work has just expanded all the way up until me running for office. When I ran in 2018, I kind of just went out there. I saw a lot of issues happening in my city, and I just wanted to do something, but I really didn't factor in what it takes to run a true campaign. So I learned from that, gained some connections and knowledge from that run. And so I'm back in 2022. It's looking really, really good. We have the same issues as any other city. Right now, we're trying to really deal with our public safety issues and building up our economic development, as well as engaging our community. I'm just a passionate person who want to ensure that we all have our rights so that we have access to the city that we live in, the city, the state, and the country that we live in.
Oh, Donna went off. I thought she was going to jump in. Okay. But your city's different because it's the state capital. It's the state capital. Yeah, it's the state capital. And so there's some stakes that are particular to the city, that to Trenton, that may be different from most other cities, right? And one of the things that you have been able to muster, and it's no small thing. My background is in media. There has been a hostility towards Black elected officials, and this is me commentating as a journalist, right? Towards Black elected officials in local press in Trenton, right? And somehow you were able to, actually get a modicum of some positive press in spite of that, right? So you've got a lot to deal with. You've got the whole machinery of the Democratic Party in the state. All that stuff, plays out in Trenton. How do you see that landscape? How have you navigated through that landscape? And where do you place yourself in that landscape?
Wow. So you hit a lot of key points here for the city of Trenton. I often use the term archaic. One would think that, Trenton being the capital, right? So you would think that we have all the resources and connections and the city is flourishing, but it is not. And it is still deeply rooted in racism. I can't put another word out there. So there's those social issues. And then we also, like right now, our elections are not nonpartisan, but we have the Democratic Party has heavy influence here. And that really plays a part in how we politic here. And so I'm very happy that I was able to run this campaign without attaching myself to the Democratic Party per se. We still have to obviously work with each other on certain things, but I did not run this campaign as a party member. I ran this campaign as basically as an independent who want to break through the social, political, and economic norms here so that we can really empower the people that live here. And I can tell you that it's no easy feat. It was not easy at all. But I gained a lot of respect and connections, and we see a complete turnaround in difference in the 2022 campaign versus the 2018 campaign. I think that me being forward thinking in that way to present my campaign in a way that is independent and detached from the local Democratic Party here gave people here a little bit of hope, because the sentiment here in my city is we have a huge voter apathy problem here, and they just do not want to participate. But this campaign, we brought the regular, everyday citizens out, and I'm very proud of that work.
Donna, you want to jump in?
Okay, yes, I do. So since Armstrong, I'm transitioning, so coming from the car into the office. So congratulations on staying in the race. And how do you feel, like you reflecting on your campaign before to now? How do you feel in terms of outcomes? What do you think you're going to land this time?
It's looking really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to call it because we have 4 days left.
Okay.
And I'm still out. I still go out every day and meet and greet and talk with people. And for the most part, people are familiar with who I am, which is because in 2018 they were not. And I'm really respected for the work that I've done. I really wanted this campaign to be about engagement in order to bring more people to participate. And I think that comes from just me being a grassroots person, where I just want to organize and mobilize people to move and act for their own behalf, so that we can be better as a group here in this city. And I'm excited about what I was able to present differently in terms of dealing with our local Democratic Party here.
So having said that, I'm sorry, Donna.
I'm sorry. And
present it differently. What are those things? Go ahead. I want you to build on that for a moment. That's
okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What I did was simple. It was real simple. I just started going out and really just talking to people and listening to what it was they were saying. And you would think that the number one issue here in the city of Trenton, since we struggle with pushing economic development forward, would be our taxes. Now, people do complain about our taxes. I do too, because we pay very high taxes here in Trenton. But the number one issue was people do not feel connected to their leadership. They don't feel valued. They don't feel heard or respected. And so I made it priority to let the people in West Ward particularly see me, know me, and I did it every day, consistently and constantly, so that they know I mean what I say. And that's completely different from what they're used to. So that was one thing that I did. And the second thing that I did was I did not on purpose associate myself to our local Democratic Party. Although I'm a Democrat, this is a nonpartisan election, but because we have a history here where the Democratic Party plays heavily here, and it doesn't necessarily play well with a good majority of the people here, I wanted to disassociate myself in a way so that they can see me for me in the work that I've been doing. So those were the two key things that I did.
Well, then, Donna, I interrupted you. Also trying to ask at the same time. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you said grassroots, so you're staying connected with the people, and that's very, very important. And they want to be heard. And going door to door, sometimes, when you're out campaigning and you want to do a couple of blocks and you end up only doing one block, not because you weren't efficient, because you were listening to the people. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I love your city too. I was just telling a young man I met for Trenton. I think there's Route 29, the water air, where the houses sit on the water, the brick homes. And I know infrastructure was a big problem down there because it floods in that area. What do you got? Are there any plans to ensure, because that's such a beauty, that's like the entry way to the city, but for whatever reason, I guess it sits so low. Any plans for the city to improve that?
There are some plans able to develop the waterfront, the Delaware River, which sits behind or off of 29. So there are some plans at play. I don't know. It's most likely that those plans will not come to fruition within the next 5 to 10 years. We'll start to see them develop that area. But there are some plans ready to be rolled out. I think aside from our infrastructure issues that we do have, we also have, I recently read this study where in 1990, our median income here in the city of Trenton was $37,000. And in 2022, our median income is $35,000. And when you consider the neighboring towns, which would be Ewing, Lawrence, Hamilton, maybe even Princeton, but Ewing, Lawrence, and Hamilton for sure, their median income is $75,000 plus. So that plays into why we're behind the 8 ball when it comes to developing something so obvious as like a waterfront.
Ed, any questions?
You're muted, Ed. He's muted.
I'm curious about what the current population is in Trenton at this point.
It's about, since the latest census, it's about 91,000 people. And in West Trenton, it's about 20 to 24,000 people.
And what is the breakdown in terms of Black folks, white folks, Latinos?
We had, so in the West specifically, I don't know if we even have that breakdown, but Trenton completely, we have 53% African American, and just under that would be the Latino population here. So we only have a turnout of 9,000 people, give or take, every election. So I am waiting to see the impact, the voting impact that I had come November 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And are the people engaged with this particular election?
They are. So when you say people, usually how they politic here in Trenton is it's more focused and led by the party. Now we have regular working class people more engaged, asking questions, showing up to forums and things like that. So I'm very, very interested to see how these numbers play out on November 8th.
Yeah. Is this your first time running for office?
No, it's my second. But it's my first time running a real campaign, because I can't think of another word. Because in 2018, I just kind of went out there, as an advocate, like, I see these injustices, I see these taxes going up, I see a lot of things happening, and I want to do something about that. And I just went out there. But the difference between 2018 and 2022 is I have a team, we have more resources, and my visibility is off the chain now. So it's looking really good. And I'm up, I don't know if you guys know, but I'm up against the commissioner's wife, which is Mrs. Frisbee, the commissioner of Mercer County, Sam Frisbee. His wife is in the race with me. And so for me to have made this impact against what we call here the status quo, I'm so very proud of myself.
For transparency's sake, we reached out to her too. She wanted to be on. We didn't hear back from her, just for transparency's sake. I want everybody to know that. This is one of the things that's fascinating about the field in your particular campaign. That there are a number of female candidates. A lot of sisters are running.
Oh yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. What do you say about the emergence of these voices of these sisters, of these daughters of Trenton, and how do you see yourself in that flow amongst them?
Well, let me see how I can word this. I do like that sisters are running for office. We just have to evaluate what agenda they're running on. What I really like is there are a couple young Black women who are running. I think it's about two 2 under 40. I'm 44 and 2 under 40 maybe. So I'm very proud of that, because for the longest time we didn't have young people involving themselves in our local politics. So to see people step up in that way and run for office, I'm very excited. And then they're Black women on top of that. That's pretty dope.
Ed, how we doing on time?
Sister Armstrong. What did God? I just lost it.
5 minutes.
Okay.
I just had a question. Oh boy. All right, go ahead, Zaya, because I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
I think what I'd like to build on is, she said 52% of the community is Black, and out of that, but if the turnout was in total in Trenton was 9,000, do you know what the total turnout for African Americans were in 2018?
Off the top of my head, I can't give you the percent, but we are the highest turnout out of the groups that are here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did say that they are engaged with this particular election.
Yes, and one, because I'm believing it to be because they're seeing representation in terms of age. A lot of leadership here are 60 plus. And so now in 2022, you see a younger generation, and we're not that young, but we're young, stepping up to be leaders in the city.
Oh, I know. Also, I had a question. Did you say in the beginning that your daughter's in the Navy?
Mm-hmm. She's
Okay.
Navy.
Okay. It's part of your campaign. I'm prior Air Force, and I know what our communities used to be really good at was making sure when persons were in college and when persons were away in the military that they got the information so that we could vote absentee. Have you had the opportunity to make sure that like your daughter can get her vote in, and other persons who are enlisted and or away for college got their absentee votes in?
Absolutely.
Now
we targeted very early on. We targeted those who we knew via lists would not be available and or would be voting by mail. That was our first line of campaigning. We wanted to target them to make sure that they knew this awesome lady named Atalaya Armstrong was running for office, and we need to put her in office so that we can begin to correct some of these social, political, and economic adverse norms here in the city. So yes, indeed, we did.
You're getting a shout out from our last guest, Carol Ruiz, and Carol, Donna, she's also shouting you out. And
I see.
I don't know if you know that Donna is a 3-term councilwoman and was the most popular in her community because of her own grassroots demeanor, right? So you could definitely take some notes from Donna, whenever and wherever, how y'all choose to get down, right? So she's a veteran at this.
Yes.
Right. How we doing the time, man? Was it time to ask the question?
You have to answer an important question, and I don't know if you were on when Carol was speaking, but this is a hip hop political show, and so you probably had time to think about this answer. But sometimes the music we listen to inspires us, and we want to know what hip hop artist, individual, or group are you listening to that inspires you as you out going to campaign, going knocking door to door, saying a speech, doing a video to send out? Who are those artists, individual, or group?
Yeah. So because I'm really not listening to I'm not purposely tuning in to listen.
Whoever sets you flowing, it doesn't have that. If it's not hip hop, that's all right.
Okay. So what I always have, and I've always been a fan of Marvin Gaye. And so I do listen to him a lot, and I listen more to R&B. So when I play music, that's what I'm listening to. But if I just want to get in the zone, I throw on Marvin Gaye.
Right. And what's your
Did
favorite?
Common read you what's going on? You could have went with Common. I think
I don't
because
know. I didn't know that he redid it.
somebody redid it, but I'll find out and let you know.
You can't get away from his melody mixed in with the instrumentals, and it's just so sharp and smooth. Like the music.
He was one of our genuine originals, no doubt about
Yeah.
it. Hugely important to my generation for sure. Right? Ed, you were trying to say something. I'm sorry.
Well, listen, we out of time. We want to definitely thank her though, for coming through, and we want to wish you good luck down in Trenton. And I got family who's from down there, and my brother's wife is from Trenton, my oldest brother, and I got a niece and a nephew who live in Trenton currently. So,
Awesome.
good luck to you, and
she said, do they live in the West Ward?
I don't know exactly what ward they live in, but I know they live in Trenton. I'll check.
What area is the West Ward? So we know. So
Westward is the most residential, and we pay the most taxes, and we pay a lot of taxes, like 1,000 plus. We have some residents here that pay $20,000 in taxes, and if you've ever been to Trenton, you're asking yourself,
that's a lot of taxes.
What are these residents get? Absolutely. Yeah. What are they getting in return? And it's not much.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Gotta have you back, daughter. Gotta have you back.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely will.
And that's the Jersey thing. Taxes in New Jersey and California, these are like probably the two highest when it comes to taxes. Ooh.
Well, we'll definitely have it back after the election. So we want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All right.
I look forward to speaking to you soon too.
Okay. All right. I'll put my number in the chat and let's talk.
Make the hookup happen.
Donna is our resident veteran political aficionado. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. Good night.
Good segment. Are we rolling? We're rolling. Is Felicia in the background?
No, she's not.
She didn't make it? Oh. It's really looking forward to having her. This young sister is running for mayor of Asbury Park.
Yeah, would love to see her.
She's she's on the line here. Let me see what's going on. I'm on mute. Y'all keep talking.
Okay. So Donna, what's good?
What happened? You can't get on?
I don't see where the link is.
Hey Zaid,
I'm gonna resend it. I'm gonna resend it to you real quick.
Zaid, mute. Oh, you did. Go ahead. Okay.
I should have muted.
I muted.
Okay. He's muted. What were you saying, Ed? What's going on? What's going on? Like,
yeah. So I was asking you what's going on.
And trying to watch Hallmark because this news cycle is just woo. I tell you, the thing that happened with Pelosi's husband we were just talking about it, at work, in the break room, if you will. It's one thing to be out at an event and somebody attack you, but to be laying on your couch and people are just crossing lines that are unbelievable right now. So, and I know I had spoke to you earlier in the week where you had, I was watching a interview on PBS and how, I don't know if you want to say traditional Republicans, but more Republicans probably in their 65 and up, and how different the party is, and how they had removed themselves because of the last leadership, and they just didn't like the direction they were going in. So it was good to hear that some people are not approving of those type of tactics.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I saw something where they actually had people in camouflage gear out in front of some election polls, and they were intimidated.
Arizona, yeah.
You know what I mean? So folks were afraid to go. I mean, just think about that for a second. We've seen
armed at the polls.
Yeah. So, and what is that about, though? You know what I'm saying? Because at any point, these election deniers could just go off and start killing everybody.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So and
that is not an unprecedented thing in the United States.
And remember,
Reconstruction was overthrown by racial terrorism.
Yeah. And remember, Zaid, one of the things I talked to you about before was remember when they were coming down on on the Black Panthers back in the day, right? When they were saying they were denying people from going into the polls, which was a lie, right? Uh, Going in to vote, but we don't hear no one talking about these folks.
That's right.
Where's that? Where's that plastic?
You would think if democracy was genuinely on the line, that this would be the number one issue
Right.
of the day in terms of American press. But because American press is also still funkily, in a very funky way, still tinged with the stench of white supremacy and some of those backwards orientations, it is just one issue among other issues. And that should not be. That should not be. So this is a serious crossroads moment. Felicia should be in the should have come on by now. I had to resend her the link because I sent it to the wrong email.
I don't
So
see it.
as she comes in, Zaid,
Okay.
you know when we were having our pop meetings in person on Thursday, and how we would have several lessons, and the one chairman would talk about when Hitler spoke in Madison Square Garden, and like these things. Sometimes we think these issues are so removed from us, but that was in 1939, and it was a rally that was, and it sounds just like today. It was a rally that was billed as a pro-American rally.
It was full house too.
And it was a full house.
12 people in the house. It was 20,000 people in the house.
And
right?
how they marched.
January 6th was just last year.
Right.
See, January 6th was last year, right? And they're mad at themselves that they didn't come more armed than they did, right? Because they still are so overwhelmed and drunk on the stench of white privilege that they ain't do nothing wrong to attack their own Congress and to threaten their own, threaten the lives of their leading congresspersons, Democrat or they don't think they did nothing wrong. Right. And do not expect to face any real serious consequences.
Mm-hmm. Right? And so that's what we're coming up in. We're 17 years short of what that would have been 100 years, and you think that we've come so far, but we've come so to the point where we're headed back right where we were back in the 30s. So, and voting has consequences. Whether you're sitting home, and you can't just sit home and think that this ideal of being able to walk into a polling place is a great idea, or this idea of having a Black woman as a Supreme Court justice. You can't sit home and just think that's a good idea. You have to get out and vote and make sure that the things that are important to you are being represented by the people that are going into office. You can't hope it. You gotta. What was the one that President Obama says? Don't boo, vote. That was, I think that was like one. Hey, Henal. That was one Thanksgiving. He was like boo, and he's like, no, don't boo, go vote. People, we have to vote.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Was Felicia is also in the background. So how you want to do this? You muted.
I was just texting Yannick that we're a few minutes behind. You right on time, right? We had a candidate that for some tech issues on my end.
I can wait.
Okay, all right.
How you doing?
Stay there. We got you. All right. We should bring Felicia on and get her in. Right. Okay. Yeah, I sent it to her old email instead of her more current email, and she was able to straighten me out. And I'm glad.
So yeah, she's back.
Yeah. And then Henal.
So before we probably should take Henal down. She left. Okay.
All right.
Hey, Felicia, you made it.
I made it. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? I'm checking my spam. I'm checking like, where is this? Where are they?
Yeah,
you were on the wrong floor, huh?
Yeah, I sent it to the other email. That's what that was, and I apologize for the confusion on.
It's no problem. Yeah. We made it. Right, I believe in perfect order.
That's right. That's right.
So we got a lot to talk about and not a whole lot of time, right? So I really want you to be able to get it in. So I've asked each candidate, and just like I'm going to ask you, instead of me, bigging you up and introducing you in that way, I want to open up with you telling the story of Felicia Simmons, who she
Oh,
is,
wow.
how she emerged, right? And what brought her to this moment to really be at this important point of challenge in her own community, running for the mayor of one of the premier shore towns in the whole state. A young sister, young grassroots sister, making waves like that. What is that story? Tell us the story of Felicia Simmons as we
Um,
with you.
I say it's nothing but God. How it all started with me. Let me give me some good posture. Literally, it started with someone inviting me to a school board meeting when my son was in first or second grade. I was always an active parent, and they were shutting down the school unneededly because I thought the school was run quite well. And went there and I was talking to the security guard, and he was like, "You have to see these school board meetings are ridiculous, right? They argue, it's crazy." So never being a public speaker, but always also socially, since like my first election I was in, like that I remember, I was in fifth grade, and it was the Dukakis Bush election. And I remember the mock elections back then in my school. And that's where I learned the integrity of the vote, because I switched my vote and I felt so guilty. I first voted for Dukakis, but then the peer pressure got me, and I switched up and voted for Bush. So, that mistake. But so I went to this meeting and I watched parents cry about the school closing. I watched teachers talking about being riffed and the formula being flawed. I watched school board members and school board employees not give it a care. They sat there, some on their phone, talking amongst themselves, laughing and joking while people are pouring out their heart. And I'm sitting there reading this agenda, feeling outraged, sitting in this seat. And I remember I leaned over and he still jokes about this to this day, leaned over and said, "How do you pronounce this person's name?" Right. And he's looking at me. And then he said, when he see me standing up in line, because I was compelled out of my seat. When I say compelled, I was compelled to get out of my seat. Again, I never spoke in public before. And I got up there and I told them how shamed they should be, right? Sitting here, being stewards of the people and not giving them their respect. I was outraged. They turned the mic off on me. I was, not belligerent because, I have a vast vocabulary. And just pushing. And I remember walking out and someone stopping me from the Parent Listening Project, which was a child advocacy group, and say, "We need you." And I was like, even though I was working 2 jobs, I had a small son, I felt compelled to get into the push. So I became a parent advocate. I became socially engaged. I was always sitting at home reading policy anyway. Just in my own private, in my job, I'm registering people to vote, right? I'm that secret person in the polling spaces. I'm like helping people, right? And explaining the ballot question. I was always that person. And it got me involved. And then I ran for school board and a few years later, and I won, right? I was appointed first by the community. They thought that it was a dead still. If they didn't appoint anybody that night, the county superintendent would have had to take over, and then they would have put somebody in the space who wasn't for the community. And they expected that to happen. But a young man who has passed away came after his dialysis and elected and appointed me. He was the extra vote they needed to get me on the agenda. And from that moment on, as soon as I sat down, I restarted the superintendent search, which we were literally moments away from hiring Dr. Rappelette. But I felt, who went on to be commissioner of education for the state, and then went on to be now the president of Keene. But I felt at that time that he didn't know the area and he didn't come to the people. And part of the issue, and still the issue, is the people aren't valued. There's no integrity. So fast forward, I became a grassroots organizer. I'm organizing for rent control here, right? Which we did referendums and got it to push to the ballot. It didn't win, but the city wound up adopting 80% of our ordinance, right? And we pushed for we pushed and I did the biggest march in New Jersey for George Floyd, where we had over 10,000 people in our city of 17,000 to come and protest. We push referendums, we push agendas to make sure that the city reflects everybody in it. I went on. I'm a poet by just because my life. I went on and do a TED talk, and my poem
Good
has
TED
been
Talk, too.
translated.
So
Thank
good TED Talk. I'm old Baraka bread poet too now. So I see you, daughter. Go ahead.
Right.
I'm sorry, you finish up.
No. Look, thank you. I appreciate it. I went on. It's the big push, and especially for people to know that we have a country that is for the people, by the people. We don't have a ruling class. We turn over our power, and what I try to make sure that everybody know, that a simple old person like me, right, who sits down and takes time and understands policies, right, can affect change, and so can you, right? There's no ruling class, right? We have people that sit on their, ASS, right? There's no ruling class. It's just people who sit back on their ASS, right? And when we sit back on our ASS and we don't get out there to vote, to challenge the establishment, when we sit back and think that everything's going to be okay, it will not. We'll have the heightened violence, right? When we're sitting here right now, and my heart is tore up about Asani Best, a young man who lost his life immediately by a police officer who had the second highest use of force tally in our town, right? He lost his life, and he was just a man crying for help.
Mental health crisis,
and
an officer knew him.
An officer knew him.
Yeah.
An officer also knew in the tape. If you watch the whole tape, and I watched the whole tape multiple times. I watched the whole tape on a full wall screen in Trenton because at the time AG Gurwal asked me to come up because he knew once the tape was released, it wouldn't be received well. So I watched the whole tape, and he knew that the crisis team was 15 minutes away. 15 minutes away. But yet he still chose to kill him. He knew there was no other person in the house. He knew that it wasn't even a real knife. It was a potting tool, right? He knew all of these things because it couldn't even cut a hat, which was an earlier part of the video. That's why he had it in the first place. He didn't threaten anyone. There was no one in the facility but him. So in the midst of protecting and serving him, they kill him, right? They go in to save him from himself and wind up murdering him. But all of these are a reflection on who you put in power, right? I have my town, right, which is 1.3 square miles with 17,000 people. Right, 17,000 people. We got $10 million for our ARP, right? We've been sitting on it for 2 years, yet there's no work program. There's no youth program, right? There we had a high COVID mortality, right? We have terrible streets. We have a backed up sewer. We have a school that's losing funding, right? Mismanagement mostly, but losing funding. We have all of these things, right? But we don't know what to do, how to spend money to help the people of the community, right? We are the only urban seat in Monmouth County, right? That means any federal dollar has to come through the greater Asbury Park area. That's why there's 1,000 nonprofits here. But yet we don't have anything but somebody who can pay your rent if you fall backwards to the landlords who are the ones creating an issue because the rent is way too high. Right? That's just a way to pass money over to their friends. We don't have work programs, and the work programs, the little initiatives they have are for waitresses. And waitress, you can't live here. The average 1-bedroom apartment is $2,200 on a waitress salary. How are you affording the rent?
Yeah, you ain't gonna make it on that.
Right? Why don't we have programs? The one Black-owned facility in our area, it's the Westside Community Center, has been outdated, outused. It is in dire need. I just became the new president of it, in dire need to be rehabbed. So we'll have something for us here, programming stimulated by us, because that's what it was in the past for us. Right? There is so much that pushed me to this seat. Right? Because I'm not a person who care about a title. The only title that you can give me is a child of God, and I'm completely grateful and satisfied with that. Right? That's the only one that I need. Right? And mom, I love that one. Right? So, and daughter, right? So knowing those things, right, and sitting out here watching the COVID rate spike in our older people in the housing authority going without and living in fear, looking at the housing authority and where they feel that it's not part of the city. I was standing there campaigning out on a campaign trail, and a roach fell from the ceiling in the back of a man's jacket. Now we're 1.3 square miles, right? 17,000 people. Multi-million-dollar budget. There is no reason why there's no one in there with a mop and some bug cleaner. These are simple necessities, right? They receive a lot of money for our poverty. The economics of violence and poverty here is the biggest business. It's a $1 billion business. They talk about our beachfront, but the poverty here is a $1 billion business. Right. And I am to the point, and I am completely done with the economics of poverty when people are benefiting off of the plight of my people. Right. And the people don't understand it's not just my people. When one suffer, we all suffer. Right. We live in a completely diverse town. Right. Where we have somebody who's a multimillionaire living down the street for someone who can't afford a dinner. Right? There is no reason why anyone here lives in poverty or goes without. It's the reason why it goes without is because somebody's making the witness way too high. True. The reason why we go without is because someone makes a lot of money off that person going without. We have a park here, which I was against them building. It spent millions of dollars out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Before it was called Affordable Housing Trust Fund, they used it as a slush fund, right? There's a park, $1 million park, and the money they used for the poverty to build it. But then across the street, they use the poverty of town to get all kinds of tax breaks to put up these townhouses where you can have an apartment in the back, right? Well, so you can make some money, right? And off your house. Those houses are going for $700,000. $700,000. They use poverty to get it, to sell it to a millionaire, because who else can afford that mortgage? Right? Again,
and I
big
always
business.
said, Felicia, Asbury Park is a town that you could, they say across the railroad track. Like you look at this
Tell
side
the
of
two
town.
cities.
Yeah, exactly. A tale of two cities. And I know coming down to the beach, the how that beachfront is built up. But like you said, there are people who the city's being built up and they can't afford to stay there anymore. Challenges. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just saying, agreeing with you, right? You have to stop me because I'm chatty.
Okay. So your platform, how many people are running for mayor?
There are 3 people running.
Okay.
Myself, the incumbent, John Moore,
Okay.
and another young lady, Sandra, right? She's from the community. Respect everybody getting out there to, make sure that their voice is heard.
And what percentage of the you said I think you said 17,000. How many people normally come out for a mayoral election and vote?
A couple thousand.
A couple of
Maybe.
thousand.
It used to be a few hundred, but then we switched to November. We have a really really small minority of people deciding the direction of the city and of the masses. Most people don't know who the mayor is, right? If you ask them who's the mayor, I don't know. They'll say an old Caucasian guy, right? And that's true. right? They have no idea, and he's been mayor for about 8 years, right? But that's not their fault. It's actually the mayor's fault. If I sit in another meeting and he says, I try to get the people out, but they don't come out, right? I sent it to this church and that church and no one came out. I tried, what he say? This wasn't even a question, but his answer was, we tried getting more blacks on the different committees and nobody signed up. Well, I know that's a lie because I signed up. You never called me. But if you go and you're told that no one goes to that church is full of people that live in multiple towns outside of Asbury Park, right? Or the demographic that you're looking for isn't in the church, right? You know that it is flawed. You want it to continue to be flawed because you actually don't want people to participate in the democracy, right? Because you get control when nobody participates. And then when a little old person from the wrong side of the tracks, I think an article called me, said I'm a candidate from the impoverished side. This was years ago. The impoverished side of the city. See, at first they love me, right? I'm from the hood and I speak well, right? Eloquent. I'm from the hood. You know, I'm a mom, big and fluffy. All those things I was great to have. And then they found out who I was. Right? They found out that I have thoughts of my own, right? And my plans and my relationship with the creator is serious, right? And my plans and this the stuff that I just like to do, right? I won't sit anywhere, right, without having an answer. If you invite me to a forum about grass, before I go to this forum about grass, I'm going to sit and study grass. Right? Have some ideas, my mind spins, right? But you invited me there and I have to do my due diligence and study the grass. So I know what you're talking about. Well, that's kind of how I approach life. So if I'm sitting on a board of education, I know why I'm sitting there. Most people who sit in these boards, or I know my position as mayor, right? Here, I understand my position as mayor. I know my role when I sit down. Well, I understand the form of government we sit under, right? I understand the powers of that person in that seat. You might not understand because I heard you say multiple things in the past and you don't really understand your purpose, right? I won't have a conflict with the administration, right? Because I know they're hired staff and my job is like the CEO, right? My job, because we have a weak mayor and a strong council and a strong city manager. As the council completely, right? Our job is to tell them what to do and they figure out how to do it. It is not the opinion of the city manager or the administration. We are the direct translation of the will of the people. And we are the in-betweens between the people and the people we hire to translate our message, right? Don't get it misunderstood. A lot of people think the city manager is the boss. No, he is not, or she is not in my town. Right, the administration is not the boss. We tell them what to do.
So what are the people telling you to do?
Oh, they're telling me to make sure that this. Look at here.
Telling you to do.
First, stop this violence. And what stop the violence? Value them, right? Put some effort behind them, right? Hear them, right? Make sure they have a place to live. Right? They want jobs so they can be able to stay here. Right? They want a safe place. Right? Because I just heard that there was a shooting around the corner. My town is a mile by a square mile. Right? Yeah. We have over 100 police officers here. Right? There is no spot. We are supposed to have eye in the sky cameras throughout town. Why are these unsolved murders happening? Why are these shootings happening and people getting away? Right? If you don't know that this is a violent street, that I know it's a violent street, why don't the cops know it's a violent street? Right? If one side of town can walk around inebriated, falling out, doing bar crawls, having a good old merry time, living their best life, that they'll decide to come and spend $3,500 on a studio here, right? Because they feel safe and they love it so much. Why the other side of town so dangerous? Right?
What's the population out there?
What the breakdown is, we lost 39% of the Black population in the last census. Right? But we are 49% African American, they say, right? I walk and knock on these doors, so I'm thinking there might be some change, but I know we hides. We hides in Monmouth County. Right?
So you're saying it's 49% black.
Yes.
What is it in terms
17% Hispanic.
Okay.
Right? And the rest is, I think, 30-something% or something like that. Percent Caucasian.
So there are more black folks out there than there are white folks. Are those black folks registered to vote?
We've been doing them for years. We've had ballots when we engage people. I want to say a few years ago, now a decade or so ago, I guess now, 2012. There was a team called A-Team, and there was a bunch of black men, right, coming together to run in town. They literally had the election stolen from them. They threw out so many ballots that it changed the complete landscape. That's actually how John got on the board, the current mayor, how he got on the board in the first place, right? They threw out more ballots than he had, right, than votes that he had.
And is John a Democrat or a Republican?
It depends on who's asking and when.
Okay. So
right?
He was
once a Republican. Then when Murphy came in, he was a Democrat. He flips, and we live in a real red county, right?
And
we live in.
Are y'all nonpartisan?
We are a nonpartisan town, yeah. But okay. everybody says they're Democrats here, but they don't play like that.
Okay.
Right? Even our Democrats are. I call them Democrat lights. Right? They wouldn't be Democrat anywhere else but Monmouth County.
So if we got 49% of the community is black, and folk recognize that they're suffering, right? And if they recognize that they can change their condition based on seizing power around politics, are they educating themselves in that area to understand that they can change their conditions by just simply voting? Do they know that?
They know, and we've had prosecutors show up on people's door asking, why did you vote for these people? We've had people standing out in polling stations. The stuff that's happened here in Asbury Park won't be allowed to happen anywhere else, but these blacks over here that burnt down their own town, surrounded by the wealthiest white people in the world. Literally, our $1 billion governor lives, less than 20 minutes away from me. Right, Monmouth County is one of the wealthiest county in the world.
So wait a minute. You just said black folks burnt down their own town.
Oh, that's what they say. We had a riot in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So uprising in the 70s. So the stigma has never left the locals here.
Our next panel, I got it. And you've been rolling too. We're running out of time. But our next panel is. We've got some young experts on voting rights in New Jersey, but what you have laid out around the corruption and this handling around voting is a story that has not been adequately told. That needs to be really lifted up and looked at. So I just had to really just stop and deal with that because I want folks to appreciate where we're going with this. This is an important show in terms of the particular segment on the eve of one of the most pivotal elections in this country, where voting rights have been under siege. And most folks see that in other states. But this is all politics or local. You just laid out a local scenario that has not been told as it should be. So I wanted us to see that, hear that.
And I'm going to tell you, it didn't happen just once. It happened every year. It happened for multiple years. They found out a system to, if they needed 300 votes, they'll go in and pull out 300 mail-in ballots and object to 300 of them. They just need to know what side of town they came from, and they're throwing them out.
Well, Felicia, as we come to an end, let me say something that in telling your story, you told a story from a civic standpoint that was very inspiring. That in 5th grade, you were engaged in civics, and that's something that we used to do a lot in New Jersey. That I hope that we get back to our student government, so that the young people who participate in their student government process in their school system become the leaders of tomorrow. So hearing you say from 5th grade, you was I think you said vote for Olympia Dukakis, but you had switched your vote over. But that story is a beautiful story. Civics is very important so that we can understand. But we have a very important question. This is a hip
Before we
hop.
get to that, Donna, hold on a
Yeah,
second. Before we get to that,
yeah,
I wanted. She started out lifting up also. She lifted up a Sonny Best case because there's a new development in the case. So I
right.
want to lift up for the fact that the Attorney General just decided not to charge the officer involved in this case, and that there's an emergency rally in Asbury tomorrow. Felicia, tell us about that, and then Donna will ask you our wind-up question.
So I'm gonna keep it brief. I have this platform now running for mayor. And but before I'm anything, I am a activist. I am again a mother. So I'm using this platform to call out people to say, come out. We can't let it happen. Right? We can't sit down and let this go down quietly. We have, if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 people, we're supposed to take this home and make sure that we make some phone calls, make sure that he knows that this was unjustified. This man did not have to die, and we have to change this culture. So it's tomorrow at 142 DeWitt Avenue, Asbury Park, New Jersey, 07712, right? The West Side Community Center. We're going to come out with an action plan because, like Reverend Niles, says, if you don't have a plan, then you're just going for a walk, right? So come on out.
What time?
Right? 12 noon. I know you have something to do, Baba, but we 12 noon.
Okay. And we're gonna lift that up further, beyond Saturday for sure.
Of course, because it's just the first, it won't be the last.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
And
Donna.
Felicia, if you have a flyer, and if you can get that flyer to Barbara, we can post it on our page. And you could also put an announcement in the chat, and we'll keep broadcasting it along for the duration of the show. But
Okay.
the question I wanted to ask you in closing, that this is a hip hop political show, and we always like to know what hip hop artist, individual or group that are you listening to, that when you go out and you have to have these discussions, whether you're firing the crowd up or laying out the issues of the day, what individual or group are you listening to?
I'm going to tell you, and this is hilarious, and I'm going to butcher his name real wrong. His name is Toby Najo. Y'all might know who he is, but he has a song, right, called Fafa, right? And he also has a song called Try Jesus, Don't Try Me, because I throw hands, right? Inside the song, he's talking about, he come from low peoples, right? But he's running the world now. And he's building his family because his wife is on there too, and their children, right? And he's talking about building a community, right? And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I literally, because we go caravan and we old school. We strapped some signs to our car, and we got some speakers out, and I ride through every part of town to make sure they know that there's an election. And we blast that song, right? So people know unapologetically who's coming in the door, right? I can't disguise who I am. I'm loud. So when I walk in the room, right, they know I'm there. So I'm going to say Toby. I'm sorry about not pronouncing his name, Nabi, but it's called 5-5. And West Side. And he gives me life, right? And in his specific song called Try Jesus, Don't Try Me, because I throw hands, right? He says, I know it says turn the other cheek, right? But that's the part of the Bible that don't sit right with me. Look.
And I'm looking at the lyrics. It says, try Jesus, not me, because I throw hands. Try Jesus. Please don't try me because I fight. I know what he said about getting slapped, but if you touch me or mine, we're going to have to scrap. So try Jesus. Please don't try me because I fight.
Come on now. Right. And that is me. I'm not a violent person, but I fight. Part of my fight is I don't have a sense of flight. Right. I plant my feet and I dig in and I fight. So you can try Jesus because he's the one that saved me. But I'm throwing some hands. We out here making change.
All right.
Well,
I'm glad you finally made it. I apologize. You had the old emails. I've been sending you a whole bunch of emails. You probably ain't even been getting, right? I gotta update the email list, right? Make sure I got it right. And good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk about safeguards, election safeguards in your town, in coming elections too. So they don't, that stealing mess got to stop.
Look.
And what line are you? Close, Felicia Simmons. How do people get to you? Right. Your line.
Right. So my line, you can find me at Felicia Simmons for AsburyPark.com. Right. 4. You can find me at Felicia Simmons, F Simmons 4AP at Gmail. You can Google Felicia Simmons on National Action Network and it'll give you my direct cell phone number. Right. My public number. I am easily accessible. Right. Because I'm for the people, by the people. And that means I'm the people. And you can find me, right? Because if I ain't doing any work, then I'm not doing anything. And so thank you. Just remember that we don't have a ruling class. We have people who sit back on ASS.
Mm-hmm.
So come out and vote on November 8th.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll be in touch. Proud of you. Glad you're able to get on. Right. And good luck.
Thank you, Felicia.
All right.
All right.
I love y'all. Y'all, I love this.
Right on, baby. Right on. Got you. Right. Now we are behind, but but we've had a loaded show already. Yannick is in the building. Right. Did we lose her now?
Yeah.
She was right on time.
Right there. She back.
I was like, I was back too.
All right. All right. So we got this is a jab in the straight right hand right here. And pardon me for using my boxing language. Ed understands what I'm talking about, right? But Henal is and Henal has been on the show before too. Both of you been on the show before, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. So
our go-to person. We call now. Where they put them boxes? Is this okay for the boxes to be close to the police station?
Yeah, I've been around every time there's a general election. You guys have me on. Happy to be here.
Everything. We like, no, they're sure they're doing this right. Yeah.
So twofold. This is a twofold. Y'all coming in strong on 2 points. Of course, now we want you to give us the lay of the land of what the challenge of voting rights means in New Jersey. Right? Folks are thinking about the red states of Arizona and Texas and Alabama and Georgia, but we're here in Jersey, right? What does the question of voting rights mean in Jersey? And Yannick just pushed our coalition around a new bill that is being pushed through the assembly or through the legislature that is allowing police at the polls, even though we have a history in this state of police intimidation when police have been at the polls, right? And this is happening in an oddly bipartisan way. And somebody in one of our previous segments raised the question of fear. You cannot lead the people with fear. And unfortunately, some of our elected folks are being led around by fear instead of leading with vision and then on principle. So, those are a couple of things we want to impact with the few minutes that we have with you. So now let's open up with you. Right. And tell us, right, what does the question of the protection of voting rights or the challenge of voting rights means for us in New Jersey as we speak now, that we should all be informed about?
It's a great question. And, you mentioned the other states, and it's real. We should consider ourselves a little lucky that we aren't in some of these states that are seeing some really terrible and aggressive voter suppression happening, but also recognize that it's not, by happenstance. We're lucky, but we're on the shoulders of giants. People did this work to make it so that we have voting rights here in New Jersey, and it's important for us to stay on the front lines of this and make sure that our rights are protected. Because the reality is that Congress is failing to act. Unfortunately, U.S. Supreme Court is extreme right now, and they are not a friend to voting rights. So all the laws that we have been relying on, the federal VRA, has been undermined. We've seen it over the last decade, and it continues to be so. So we need to be working to first codify those rights into New Jersey law so that at least our right to vote is protected. But then we have to recognize that it's not great here. There are still so many issues. And it's funny, Felicia just mentioned one of them. Well,
I'm glad you heard that.
Yes, when she was talking about Asbury Park. At one point she mentioned that in the past their elections were in May, right? They just moved them to November, and when they were earlier in the year, they had maybe a couple hundred people turning out to vote. There are things like that happen in New Jersey all the time. It seems like a small thing, right? But it's big. Most people, go talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Most people don't realize that there are elections outside of November. We also in New Jersey have off-year elections. Our gubernatorial election was last year. How many people know that? Right. Those are real issues when you think about the fact that the media is focused on even year elections. We have high turnout in presidential years, not in other years. This is by design. It doesn't have to be this way. Our elected officials choose to allow this to happen, and it's because they can predict turnout if you have a smaller electorate. We have institutional things over and over again. We have the party line that gives so much advantages to people in power. We have other limitations. We don't in New Jersey have same-day voter registration. 20 states in DC have same-day registration. In New Jersey, we have to register to vote 3 weeks before Election Day. Every single election that disenfranchises people. We do nonpartisan election protection every election. Right now, we're doing it. If you're facing any election issue, you have a question, curious, please call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. It's the National Lawyers Committee model. We have partners here in New Jersey on it too. Every election, including right now, we get calls of people going, hey, I thought I was registered, and they're not. Or call
1-866-VOTE. I want to make sure we got that right.
1-866-VOTE. Call us. We can try to help you. But here's
I'm sorry. Because right there, if you miss two.
What area code do we use for that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. What would you say?
What area code do we use for that?
866-OUR-VOTE. So 866 is the area code.
1-866-OUR-VOTE. I'm sorry.
Yeah, our vote.
I got it right.
Okay. So what you just said about people thinking they're registered, but it might have been something you may have not voted for the last two.
Yes.
And so they purge your name if you don't vote in 2 general elections, I believe it is. So they have all of these different rules that you may not even realize it. You may have been registered, but because you didn't do something, then they purge your name.
Absolutely. We see things like that happen all the time. If you haven't voted in a couple of elections, and some people choose not to. Or maybe they didn't realize, maybe they didn't care enough at that time. They weren't inspired. There's a number of reasons people don't vote, and they might be taken off the rolls. And they don't realize that because they did register at some point. Right. And that and then you show up and your vote won't count. Right. Even if you vote by provisional ballot, they're required to at least not turn you away, but it won't count unless you're a registered voter. We don't have to have it this way in New Jersey. It doesn't have to be this way. 20 states, DC, if you go, you can register on election day and vote. We have the setup. They choose not to do this. That's voter suppression. And it's not just folks who were once registered. We have people becoming citizens after the registration deadline who can't vote in this election. We have people who are incarcerated, who come out, who now have the right to vote because of the laws that we changed, and now they can't vote in this election. In 2020, which is arguably one of the most important elections in our lifetimes, 400 people were released from prison between election day, between the voter registration deadline and election day. For over 400 people. That was the first year people on parole and probation had the right to vote. But those 400 people could not vote because of an arbitrary voter registration deadline. That's what voter suppression looks like. But it's not it. We have a lot of other things that happen. We have issues of, and this is anyone in Newark recognizes this. Often, Election after election, we see issues in Newark, long lines, polling places not open, things like that. Those are systemic issues that shouldn't exist. So one, we have same-day voter registration. There's a campaign. You're welcome to join us. You can find information on our website. It's called Democracy in a Day. We want that. Especially if you're in Union County, call your representatives. We're having a lot of issues there. But also, we are urging legislators right now to push for a strong John Lewis Voting Rights Act for New Jersey.
I was going to go there. We've got one in New York. Why can't we have one in Jersey?
Yes, and we need to do this for a number of reasons. One, we need to codify the federal VRA in New Jersey law because we can't trust the U.S. Supreme Court. I think we can all agree on that at this point. I shouldn't say all, but at least hopefully everyone listening here today can. Two, we need to address the issues voters in New Jersey still face, like the fact that in Newark, you're often facing long lines, like the fact that your issues where polling places might not be open, things like that. And three, we need to recognize the VRA, the federal VRA passed decades ago. Our communities in New Jersey are a lot more diverse now than they were decades ago. So we need for language access, we need to recognize the communities in New Jersey and make sure our voting is accessible to them and the languages they speak.
Absolutely.
And then the last one that I wanted to mention is one you touched on. Police at the polls. You know, this bill, and I'll let Yannick add to it, but let me, by way of background, we passed in New Jersey a historic law that limits police presence at the polls. It's not major.
One of
it's
the few things that we got done on the question of police reform, by the way.
Yes, they wouldn't do real reform, but the one thing they did was limit police presence 100 feet. It's not a large bar, 100 feet, and they can come to obviously vote themselves on an individual level. And if you need to address, you know, if there's a real issue at the polls, they can come to address that. But otherwise, we recognize as a state that, you know, we need to keep some distance because we were seeing this. We were seeing drop boxes placed by police stations. We're seeing police station just hanging out at polling places all day. You know, and the thing is this, the individual police officer might not intentionally try to suppress anyone's home. They're just standing there. But their mere presence has a perceived effect for a lot of people in a lot of communities, and we need to recognize that. And we did. 100 feet is the same bar on electioneering. Candidates can't electioneer within 100 feet. That's the same bar. And now they're trying to roll it back, as you said, because of fear. They're rolling it back with a misguided attempt to allow police at nursing homes and schools that are used as police stations, as polling places, and they shouldn't. We need to recognize these issues. I'll turn it over to Yannick to talk about this a little more, but I want to say, before I start that, I want to just say, if you do encounter this right now, early voting's happening. Go vote. You can do that right tomorrow. You don't have to wait till Tuesday. Go vote this weekend. But if you're facing any of these issues, if you see police at polls, this, first of all, the law that's pending is not in effect yet. Right now, the law is they cannot be within 100 feet of polls. Call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. If you're seeing that is an issue. They shouldn't be there, and we can address it. But I'll turn it over to Yannick to talk about the pending bill and those, and how disappointed we are. And there's still opportunity to contact your legislators to stop this.
Right. We'll put the link up for that right now too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Henal, for turning it over. And I'm happy that you brought that last point about if you see issues right now, call, because you know, I had the opportunity to testify in the assembly about this, and part of what you know, a few Republican assemblymen were mentioning is that they didn't believe that there was enough data to talk about voter suppression. Never mind the fact that there was a study of this type of conduct when it was done in Alabama, when they had police officers at voting precincts, and it resulted in 32% reduction in African-American participation. Or never mind the fact that in the 1980s, even in New Jersey, there were police that were intentionally put into urban communities for the purpose of suppressing those votes. And as a result, the National Republican Party, but also New Jersey, was under a consent decree that ended fairly recently in 2017 because of that type of conduct. So legislators didn't believe that there was enough evidence of this. So if you do see this type of behavior of officers being at polling locations, officers being at drop-off boxes, please call in. But just to echo what Henal was talking about, in January, there was a bill that addressed all these issues because legislators were enlightened at that moment. But unfortunately, starting right after that bill being signed, there's been an effort to roll that back so that police can be present in polling locations that are in schools or that are in senior centers. A lot has been said about, the police presence in schools, about how that does not help youth. We saw that, unfortunately, about a week ago in St. Louis, there was a shooting where there were 7 armed resource officers inside the high school, but they saw the person coming in with a gun, and they were still unable to prevent that person from coming into the high school. So we know that armed guards do not actually protect youth. In fact, there's actually a study that we found that in places where they have armed guards, youth, the rates of death is 2.83 times greater when there's an armed guard present. I actually just read an article recently about this, which kind of asked a question about whether people target locations because they have armed guards. But police presence does not actually protect youth. It's not necessary inside these polling locations to actually protect youth. And then also, in senior centers, we all love our seniors, but if there is some particular threat to a senior center, then police can be present. Or if there's some sort of emergency at a school or police or at a senior center, police can come, but they don't need to actually be stationed out there. And that was something that, we tried to convey to the legislators. It seems like a lot of their decision making is based on fear. There's also, a possibility that this might be a source of overtime for officers to actually be in stationed out there in front of these locations. That would actually be a direct cost to municipalities that have to foot the bill for officers to be there. And also some municipalities, they have state police as their local police because they're in rural areas. So that's actually directly the taxpayer that would be paying for state police to be in some of these polling locations to potentially suppress the vote. So that's really alarming. So at this point, yep. Sorry.
So Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson, she wrote the original legislation, and I thought, and when she wrote it 4 years ago, she was very specific that if the police were to come, they were only supposed to come and to be there for a moment and then leave, but not to sit there, have coffee and cake, and can you
Yeah. Well, what I would say is that we work with Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson on a lot of different bills. She is a stalwart on a lot of different bills. But we know with legislators, sometimes, they make good decisions, and sometimes they make decisions that we disagree with. This is one thing where the previous law, with the law that's currently in effect, we agree with. This is one situation where, a previous supporter of stuff that we like, we fear is making a wrong decision in supporting this current bill. And she's not alone. There's a lot of legislators who have been correct on a lot of different issues, who voted on the bill to get it to the current law that we have right now, who are making a wrong decision in supporting this. And unfortunately, I fear that it's because of the politics of the moment. And the best that we could do is we could encourage our legislators to make the right decision. So if you go on our website, njisj.org, there's a button to click take action. If you click that, you could be linked to an area where they have what's called a phone to action. You click a button, you'll get your legislators' information. You could send them an email. You can get your senators' information. You can send them a phone call and call their office. So just let them know how you feel about this, because they might have made up their mind about the politics, but really at the end of the day, they represent us. So they need to listen to us, how we feel about this issue. and they can't make decisions based on just pure politics. It has to be based on what our will is.
Can you put that link in the chat so that we can put it out?
Yeah,
That link.
I did. The status of
Yeah.
the bill, Yannick, because we get ready, because I know we behind.
Okay, all right. So
we got the congressman in the wings.
Yeah. Okay, so very briefly, okay, so the bill already passed out of the Senate, and then it went into the Assembly for the Assembly to take up a version of the bill. While it was in the Assembly, it was changed a little bit, right? So it was passed in the Assembly, so it had to go back to the Senate right now for it to be changed a little bit, so that way it's identical to the Assembly version. So it's going to be in the Senate later on this month to be voted on.
Yep. Okay. So I'll just add to Yannick's point. It'll go back to the Senate and then the governor. Right. So we can still, send those emails. We have the link that Baba Zaid put on. Use that to tell the senators to vote no, and also Governor Murphy. He could veto this.
That's right.
The Jersey Coalition for Accountable Policing is. We've got a draft of an open letter that is designed to go to the governor that we're asking all of our coalition partners to sign on as well. And so folks who are listening and are part of the coalition, pay attention to your email, because we've been blasting that out. We need y'all to jump on this. And we got to deal with this timeline that we're concerned with too. Right?
And we hope to have
go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Just have the Institute back, and Institute real quick, Henal, and then followed by Yannick. What hip hop artist or individual are you listening to today that you have to go down to Trenton and fight these assembly persons and senators? Who are you listening to?
Y'all these scared elected officials. What y'all do to fire y'all up?
Who you listening to, Henal?
Maybe the opposite of being fired up. I've been honestly the last few weeks, almost every day, at least once, I've been listening to Megan Thee Stallion's Anxiety. It's been a rough couple of weeks. Listen, bad bitches have bad days too. I don't know if I can say that on radio. Apologies.
Too late.
You just got the minister following you up. He's back there praying for you right now. So Yannick,
I thought it was really funny when Felicia Simmons was talking about Tobe Nwigwe. That's his last name, Nwigwe. And I'm so glad she brought him up. I think he's a phenomenal artist, especially that particular song. I think he's very underrated. His music videos are amazing. But also, I was also just, this is not somebody, I really listened to, but I was just really disheartened by the death of Takeoff from Migos.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
That was really disappointing. So I just wanted, to highlight that, that it's just unfortunate when people back in their community just playing outside there and then people targeting them with guns and all. Right. And that's why we need to
at a bowling alley. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to have you guys back. We need to give you, so we can just see all the work that your body of work you're doing. So we're going to bring you back, and we're going to bring you back with Miss Becky, who was one of the institute, and to kind of sit, what her vision for the institute was and what you're doing now. And let's just prepare some notes and see, how the work is continuing. But thank you guys.
We would love that. I'll mention there's a couple of things we're excited to be working on if anyone's interested. A couple of things. We are right now have a campaign. There's legislation up to strengthen enforcement for appraisal discrimination. I think it's something that a lot of people are hearing about. Black people are constantly being their homes are being appraised at significantly lower than their value than their white neighbors are, and that is something we are trying to address. There's a bill pending. It might actually pass soon, so if you want to support that or share your story if you've been a victim of this. And two, we are trying to expand jury service to people with criminal convictions. New Jersey has a lifetime ban.
Right on to that.
A lifetime ban, and it means that juries are much whiter than our communities. And so please join those campaigns. We could come back later to talk about them and further, because I know we have a congressman on the wings. But
absolutely. Thank you. All right. Good share, y'all. Right? Be in touch.
Bye, everyone.
Right? All right. Loaded show tonight.
We just lost Reverend Tillard. It was right there.
Where you go?
Oh, there you go, Reverend. There you go. You got to put some light on.
So we're going to run them all together, Ed?
Yeah. Reverend Tillard.
They all do.
On the congressman, but let's run Conrad so that we can get an update.
Hey, Reverend Tillard, your mic is off right now, and your light is
Okay.
off too.
How is everyone this evening?
You
How are
can't
you?
put the
Can you
light.
hear me
Yeah,
now?
yeah, we can hear you. We're gonna give you the mic. You know, this has been a heavy week for New York. Y'all have lost one of your
Yes.
great leaders, Abyssinian. Thinking about Reverend Butts, you know, rather still young man out there doing the work. He has some big shoes to fill. You know, Congressman came out of Abyssinian. Who was the congressman? I just lost his name.
Adam Clayton Powell.
You
Adam Clayton
elected
Powell.
official of the mix.
Yeah, yeah.
Girl.
Adam Clayton Powell, you know, he would do his work in D.C. and come back and preach on Sunday, and he kept the people in Harlem engaged and
Mr. Civil
informed.
Rights. That's what he was called.
Say that
He was
again.
far more profound than he was being portrayed in that show that's on in TV land. Now I got to say that's Powell.
But what did you say about civil rights? I didn't hear you. We were both talking.
He was called Mr. Civil Rights. That was one of the things that they called Adam Clayton Powell. That was one of his beloved titles.
Listen, before the Congress, come on, let's give Conrad.
So, Reverend Tillard, can you go ahead and just give us an update?
Sure. I'm just leaving the funeral, and of course, in true African fashion, it was about a 6-hour funeral. And the irony of it is, at the beginning, the presiding minister said that it would not be like what happened in Detroit. Detroit was about 9 hours. Dr. Butts was 6. So, you know, I was explaining to my son, Barack, that in our tradition, when a king dies, you celebrate his life for a month. And so obviously 6 hours was not enough to hear from Dr. Butts' family, many of the sons and daughters, those of us who were trained and ordained at Abyssinian, but also the world leaders that came, Bill Clinton, the governor of the state of New York, the mayor of the city of New York, and many, many others sent letters.
The vice president was she there yesterday or today?
I didn't. Maybe the vice president was there yesterday.
Okay.
But yesterday there was the wake, and of course there was a tremendous celebration by the Masonic order that Dr. Butts was a part of, and the Kappa fraternity, and of course the Morehouse College delegation. So it was a homegoing service befitting a man of Dr. Butts' status, and more importantly, because the theme throughout the community, the theme throughout the service is what manner of a man. He came to Abyssinian in 1972. He served there for 50 years. He was the president of a college. At the same time, he was the pastor of the church. He started AIDS ministries when a lot of Black folks were afraid to talk about AIDS and afraid to get involved in that level. He helped to build housing. His counsel was sought by presidents, and you know, it was just an amazing man, and I count it a blessing. You know, I met him in 1989. He was becoming the pastor of Abyssinian in 1989, and I was the national youth minister of the nation, and he was very close to Minister Farrakhan. He actually met him in 1972 when he first graduated from Morehouse and came to Union Seminary. Minister Farrakhan was then at number 7. So it's a close family relationship between Abyssinian and Mosque number 7. So we met, and we both were very active in the community. When he stood up against the lyrics that the rappers were degrading our community and our women, he stood up, and I stood with him. You know, and he's just been a good friend. When I returned to the church, he was just a blessing to me. You know, he and the minister talked about it, and you know, the minister told him I was just going from faith to faith, and I felt it was literally like going from one family home to another family home. And you know, of course, he ordained me and licensed me and even baptized me. And he's just a remarkable man, and I was just so happy to see the church full of people for the last 3 days, and Harlem, and you know, it's interesting. Lastly, Dr. Butts was a global person. In 2008, he took Abyssinian to Ethiopia to commemorate our 200-year anniversary. You know, Abyssinian was founded in 1808 by Ethiopian merchants and African Americans. So he took the church to Ethiopia and developed relationships there, business relationships, etc. But he also was a national preacher and a national figure. But let me tell you something. This man loved Harlem and he loved Abyssinian Baptist Church. And, you know, he saw himself as a Harlem pastor. And of course, all of the other things were just extras. And I was happy to see Harlem turn out for him today.
And Reverend Tillard, so he was preceded by Congressman.
No,
there
he was not.
was another.
No,
Okay.
because you
It's
see,
Proctor.
Dr. Right. So Adam Clayton Powell died in 1972. Interestingly enough, Dr. King was assassinated April 4th.
On the same day. That's right, 4 years later.
Adam died April 4th, 1972. And then Dr. Samuel D. Wood Proctor came in. And Dr. Proctor had been Jesse Jackson's mentor at North Carolina A&T. He actually was a distinguished professor at Rutgers.
That's right.
At
There's
the
a big
time.
place in New Jersey. They sure did.
Yes, and he said he didn't want to leave Rutgers, so part of the condition that he gave Abyssinian to come was that he could hire 3 assistants, and Dr. Butts was one of those. And while the others left, as the custom, we get ordained there, we go get our own churches. Butts stayed. He stayed from 72 until the Lord called him home last week. So it was a remarkable man, remarkable run. Remarkable.
And I know there's so much you could say. One thing, I've seen an interview he did about his wife, and he loved his wife.
Yes, and let me say, Mrs. Patricia Butts, 51 years of marriage, and she was there along with Calvin the Fourth,
that
and
is beautiful.
Alex and Patricia and the family, the grandchildren, and it was just a great. My son, I took Barack out of school today because I wanted him to witness that history. And he sat there for 6 hours and the pageantry, the power of the Black church. It was on display today. And I felt happy because I know Doc would be very, very happy.
Well, let me ask you, 6 hours looking at your son, was your son like, was he like, wow, for him to see our community show love for this pastor? Was he like, like really engaged in what was going on?
Yes, he was. In fact,
how old is he, Conrad?
He's 13. So, I know that one of the things we have to do is train our young people. And I learned that first from Jesse Jackson because, I'm a little older than Jonathan and Jesse. And he always say to me, Conrad, get Jesse and Jonathan involved in what you're doing. And I watch how he took them around the world, and they would sit in meetings with him and travel with him. And of course, they both have grown up to reflect that. Jesse served in Congress. Jonathan's on his way. So, what you invest in these children by making them, and they don't always want to go to this kind of stuff, but it's important that they be present, that some of that greatness by osmosis invades their space.
That's right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
You're going to be, Congressman Payne is coming up. And one of the things, his father was the same way. He
great
believed
man.
in
That's right.
allowing you to be in the room so that you can witness how the work is done.
Absolutely.
It's very important. So thank you
Thank you. God bless.
Hey, Conrad, let me just ask you this before you go.
Sure.
Did Minister Farrakhan send any notes? Or any
there were hundreds of commendations, and they were not able to read them. I did see where the minister wrote a beautiful note in the final call, but I did. They were just able to read a few today. So I'm sure he did send a letter to the church, but as you can imagine, they read one from Barack Obama and one from Morehouse maybe, and I think that was it. But there were speakers that covered the gamut. What's that?
We have to figure out, Ed, Conrad, I want you both to hear me. We have to figure out how to get the minister interviewed for the anniversary of the convention. He was there in 72.
that'll be easy because Ed can make that happen.
Well, he's already. I mean, he's already committed to being part of the conventions. Right?
Right.
Yeah, we got to get him in. We got to, but that all history thing, that story,
Right.
that history, that needs to be centered in a certain way, right?
Right.
So I'm just putting that out there, right? So
All
I don't want
right.
that to get by us.
Well, God bless.
God bless again. Like all day. Thank you.
Keep the faith. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Conrad. Peace,
All right. Sorry for the delay.
It's all good.
All worked out in the he think he was delayed. He was perfectly on time.
Yeah.
All worked out the way it was supposed to.
But you know what's interesting is what I heard from all of those candidates was that if the people were registered to vote in all of those cities, and if they all came out, right, they could change their condition. And
That's right.
what I heard. Because and the question that I heard that I was asking Zaid was the same. What was the population? What was the breakdown?
Right. What's the makeup? How many are registered? That's right. We
have a saying: if people if all the black people in Essex County came out and vote, as Essex County goes, so does the state of New Jersey.
Right.
We have those numbers.
That was real for Phil last time too. That's for sure.
I remember when Johnson, the young brother Johnson, he ran for governor against, and people were. You remember Johnson? I can't remember his last name. Remember he ran for governor, young black brother in New Jersey.
Yeah,
he was with Montclair. But what people was very surprised about his campaign, he brought the people out in the suburbs, and people were really looking at, how his vote, because he's from Montclair, I believe, and his numbers in the suburbs were very, very impressive.
But the thing is that if we what we've got to do is we've got to begin this political education in all of these cities.
Yes, yes.
So what's happening tomorrow?
And so that's right. Wait a second. I just want to say this. What I remember is, and I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about when Amiri would come to the station, and I told him this. One of the things he used to always say to me right before he left, he would say, Ed, I want you to continue to think about this. We black people populate in 27 states. And he said, in those 27 states are cities. And he said, if we took over those cities, which is what she was talking about, Asbury Park, Trenton, right, Newark, all of that. And here, all of us are suffering from the same conditions.
That's
right. We got violence, too much violence. We got not enough jobs. We got we can't
afford.
Right. All of that is the same issues. So what it seems to me is that what Amiri was saying was right on target, right? So if you want to change those conditions, you got to change the power structure.
That's right.
And so what it sounds like, Zaid, we need a political education. And like you said, it's starting tomorrow. Right?
Tell everybody what's happening tomorrow.
So we start that tomorrow at the library. And it was interesting that young sister was talking about the John Lewis voting rights law, right? We starting it with the John Lewis voting rights panel tomorrow based around voting.
That's right.
Right? And educating our people. And so that happens tomorrow at the Newark Library, starting at 1:00, with an incredible group of people who can speak directly to that. And then talk about what happened in 1972 at the Gary Convention. Right? And so you can pick it up from there, Zaid.
Well, I mean, we got some loaded folks. We have 3 elders who were there in 72. 3 different walks of life in terms of where they're at today, but they were there together in 72. Adimu Chunga, the great Lawrence Ham, 17 years old, one of the youngest delegates there in 72. Now the chair, long distance runner for the People's Organization for Progress, right? Junius Williams, right? The city historian of the city of Newark and a long time serious attorney and who's got his own métier with both of those fronts, right? Got a great book out too that people are sleeping on that they need to get, right? Junius was there. right? Who can break down what happened, what has happened to the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was on its ascension back in '72. Our movement was, on terms of elected officials being mobilized, was in a place of ascension. Now we're under attack in a way that we haven't seen in a long time, and we need to be real clear about all of those dimensions. And then Mama Amina Baraka, right, was there also, and it's got and Amina and Ademo both have been sounding the drum real clear that we have to halt the advance of the right wing and prevent the rise of fascism, which is on the horizon for real. So that being moderated by our daughter, Kalina Berriman. Kalina's already chimed in on the chat, right? Who's done so much in her handful of years already. Expect a lot from that young lady, right? So it's going to be a powerful thing. It's going to be live streamed by the NBPC convention YouTube page. So everybody should subscribe to that as soon as you can, and make sure if you haven't registered yet that you do. It's going to be first come, first serve based on your registration. 1 o'clock sharp. No Public Library, the James Brown African American Room. Now, I got to say this too. We were talking with some young folks the other day who didn't realize that the James Brown that we were talking about was the librarian James Brown,
Right.
and not the Godfather of Soul, right? But our African American Room is named after one of our long-standing community servants right at that library, the late great James Brown, who purposely made sure that the community was fully engaged with something that he called the Lorraine Hansberry Lecture Series, right? We miss that brother. He was a good brother who loved his city, who loved that library, and loved what we can do in spaces like that.
But now, Zaid, did you know, because I got a phone call from Michelle on this today that works, with the mayor. Did you know that Cleopatra Tucker was at the convention?
No, I didn't. Doesn't surprise me.
Her husband,
her and her husband both were fully engaged back then, and Donald taught a lot of the local generation of elected officials how to stay engaged with your base. New Jersey Black Issues Convention is his brainchild, and he was trying to do that on the state level. And BIC was a very different organization when he was here in the land of the living than what it is now. All due respect to the folks who are still trying to hold the line, but I'm not at all surprised at that. And we got to get an interview. We got to get this oral history project.
Right now. She also let Michelle get this, Zaid. She has an incredible collection of photos from the '72 convention.
Wow.
And she let her take about 100 of them in order to get them, scanned,
digitized. Yeah.
Yes. But she had the actual black and white photos, over 100 of them, right? Of Amiri, of all of the delegation that came from Newark, all of that. And so I told her, I said, we need to, put together something where we actually have a talk with her at the Newark Library, do a reel.
We need to go to where she is with those pictures.
Oh, but I told that, but the same thing, we can sit down and interview her, because she was having a conversation with Michelle, telling her what that experience was like, right? Yeah, and how that ignited her and her husband to become engaged politically, right? So you could imagine that's what I'm saying, Zaid. Some of these people are still alive.
Right. We got to lift them up.
And we got to lift
them up. We got to get everything from them that we can in order to move this thing forward. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, she's not available to come tomorrow because Michelle asked her, was she available to come through? But she did let her take her photos. She is she's digitizing them, and she said that because she owns them, we can have the rights to use those photos.
And what would be nice if we tell Dr. Harris, because he probably can have one of his students interview her and have the pictures as you're doing the interview, and then we could use it, as a part of it, because that would be for somebody that was been there, and and when she sees the picture, of course, it's going to help her reflect more deeper well, clearly about what happened on that picture, what that picture was about, or she can say, "Oh yeah, see that picture, I was doing this and so on." That would be really interesting. You said over 100 pictures.
Well, no, she got more than that. She let her take 100 of them. So
Wow.
she had I mean, and all this stuff was in her attic.
Mm.
And she went up to her attic, according to Michelle, and got some of these photos and brought them down. At first, she wasn't going to let her take them. And then she told her why she wanted to take them for the National Black Political Convention. And she said, "Oh, okay, I'll let you take them." But you could imagine the valuability of those photos. I don't even think she knows, but the fact that she told her that, we were working with the mayor and so forth, that's why she let her take the photos. But I'm saying because she owns them, that means that we can actually get the right from directly from her or either her son, you know what I mean? Because they would eventually go to him. But I'm saying we could get them, Cleopatra, just to sign a release and allow us to use her photos, man. Which would be amazing because
that could be an exhibit.
Because remember, she got pictures of the Newark delegation. Right?
That could be an exhibit.
Who all of those people were. We don't know.
That could be an exhibit. We need to really look at it.
That's right. So
and then it's so funny because
we could run those reels at the convention themselves.
Right. And then after Michelle puts them together, maybe even do a letter because the museum in DC likes to do special where they run, highlight special things, special events for a period of time. Because I know when I was at the museum in DC, they had quite a few things on Amiri Baraka. Then they had like things from Leroy Jones, and then it went on to Amiri Baraka.
Yeah, but Donna, what in my mind, I would think that because you have the assemblywoman who's from Newark, right?
Right.
And her husband was a councilman here, an elected official. In my mind, I would think that the exhibit would have to exist here in this city, right? And we would be able to do that. We could do that at the Newark Library. We could do that at the museum. We could do that at Rutgers, right? All places we could do that exhibit, and the National Black Political Convention could be a part of that, right?
Right.
In terms of organizing that. And then for prosperity, recording her, right, and putting that together, and then having a conversation with her, and then have her part of not only the forum series, Zaid, that we're doing, right, but also
very important on the convention
itself, right, with all of those photos, engaged in a conversation with Larry, engaged in a conversation with Julius, all the people who are from Newark that were part of that convention,
who are still here, yes.
Right, and so
who was that on the show? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And because the important piece is that remember the guy that Amiri allowed to take those photos, right? Remember, the Baraka family don't own the video, they don't own the photos, they don't own any of that, right? And so you got to remember YouTube, right? Where that video is, those people. And then the company, because I bought the video from a company, but remember those people are making millions of dollars, and Amiri didn't know at the time. I'm sure he didn't know when he gave the rights to these people. Remember, that guy's dead, but his family understood the valuability of that stuff, and all of that stuff should the Hatchet family children should be making money. The Baraka family should be making money. They didn't know the valuability of that stuff. But there are other people.
Photographer record with Leroy Henderson. I've been trying to get his information because journalists asking permissions to use what are his photos.
Right. And well, the only thing I could tell you, Zaid, is that we were given permission because early on, Rakia had actually reached out to them. And they told us we could use photos, right? So whatever we got, y'all can use because they gave us the right to do that. But I'm thinking all of these photos I have not seen, right? That somebody that lives in the city of Newark could give us the rights to.
That is an archivist and a historian's dream.
And I'm sure Cleopatra made. I mean, I'm sure that the councilwoman, Assemblywoman Tucker might not know, but you can believe her son know valuable that stuff. You know what I mean? And to say, hey, bruh, now I know you know what this means. The fact that she found all of this, and now we can actually, scan all of these, and we can send them now to the Library of Congress, and we could now have all of these, because at this very moment, those pictures could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Who knows? We haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, I can imagine, because Councilman Tucker, when he was the leader of the conference that just happened. Vic, right?
Black Issues Convention.
Yeah, Black Issues, and I can imagine all the information she has. She probably has. She probably has so much, and the fact that she can just go up and go into the attic and go right to those pictures and bring them right down, so it's like she has everything probably in good order, where she can just put her hands on whatever historical item we may want to see.
Yeah, and there's no telling what else, but when Zaid talks about the oral history, could you imagine hearing it from her perspective? And now remember, Zaid, I didn't see these photos, but what Michelle told me was how beautiful she said that Assemblywoman Tucker was in '72. Right? She's a beautiful
now.
She's beautiful now, yeah.
Imagine when Michelle said how beautiful she was in '72. I'm like, I could imagine, right? So and she said, Ed, wait till you see these pictures. She said these pictures are gorgeous, and you could in black and white. If they took care of those pictures, you could imagine they look like old movies.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see him. And she said that, they were going to have somebody in City Hall actually scan them, put them on a reel, so they're going to send them to us after they do that, so we could run those pictures, and she'll be able to tell stories behind all of those pictures, man. So I mean, and if we could locate, and she probably know where all of these people are. If we could locate all of these people, and then actually get that delegation together, we can invite that delegation to the library.
Absolutely.
And sit down with them, run those pictures, and get that. Because here's the thing, Zaid, there are no organizational meetings based around what they actually left Gary with, right? Remember in '72, they were talking about organizing for Black political power. The only place that really exists at, where it's really taking hold, really is in the city of Newark.
Newark was out front.
Because you talking about,
appreciate how out front Newark was with that.
Right, because you're talking about on the city council is actually controlled by 5 Black council people. Think about that. And then 3 other people of color. So the conditions can be changed legislatively for our people if we understand how to move that forward. And I think that's why we're getting so much.
Name of the show?
And there was a movie on Lifetime called Betty and Coretta. And I'm looking at they said in that movie.
I'm not fond of that movie. I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
But they said in that movie there's a scene where, because Angela Bassett plays in it, but they do a scene where they were speaking directly to Black women at the convention in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
So they did that scene in the movie. So so there's little pieces of history all over, and if you can just get it all to come together, and especially from a more when Assemblywoman Tucker was there, from somebody that was there and give her perspective, and she's not somebody not getting the third-hand information, you're getting it firsthand.
Firsthand, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so where's our beloved congressman? Is he here? Mic check. That's a serious find. You're listening to Local, America's #1. Huh?
Did I mute y'all?
No, you did it yourself.
Oh yeah. I was trying to call the congressman,
Okay.
to see what was going on. I don't know if he got hung up or or he's doing something on the campaign trail, for somebody
It's
tonight.
that. Yeah, it's that.
Yeah, he's been out walk. He was out walking in
That kind
West
of-
Orange with the candidates. Yes.
He was.
Want to shout out our little brother, our DJ Rhino. He's got a little medical thing he's trying to do. We want to shout him out, send him some love, send him some.
That's right.
Thoughts. We definitely be talking about this loss that Yannick lifted up in the hip hop community. Another senseless loss to this violence, right?
And also one of the
community,
Yeah.
And also one of Rhino's rappers that he had on some time ago. We lost him, but the young brother, what was the rapper's name that was on that? Rhino just let us know he
he
that passed, but he
that cancer,
right, and once we get to our 50s, we have to be real intentional about taking care of our health, our doctor's appointments, both men and women. So like you said, keep lifting Rhino up, but the more you can be proactively and making doctor's appointments, keeping when you get 40, there's certain things you should do. When you turn 50, there's other things you should do. I know Congressman Payne, he's a big advocate of making sure that you're taking care of yourself healthily internally from colon cancer, and he passed some legislation about colon cancer.
Who was that?
To prevent Congressman Payne.
Okay. Yeah.
colon cancer and diabetes, because he's fighting diabetes.
And remember he had the doctor on that if black people, how he was saying black people were being amputated at a higher rate than any other people, and how he had went to this doctor who saved him, from being amputated, and who put his life on a different track health-wise.
Medical apartheid still exists.
Mm-hmm.
We can't think that there's not going to be apartheid in housing and apartheid in education, and not be apartheid in the medical infrastructure. It's going to be like.
Hey, DJ Rhino came through after your medical procedure. We're talking health, brother.
You good, young warrior? What's going on, young?
Peace. What's going on?
And we were just shouting out the brother that you interviewed who passed away, who had been battling with
Rashad's son.
Yeah,
Rashad's son. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Rhino, can we speak a little bit to Takeoff a little bit, man? Just that, because and I want to discuss it from really your perspective as an elder in hip hop, right? Not from a
Rhino, they're calling you an elder now.
No, I'm saying Rhino's
what it is, though.
Yeah, because I was listening. Because Rhino, I was listening to Fat Joe, right? Did you see his piece where he said that he's an elder? He said he's an elder statesman, right? Mm-hmm. He said, "I'm 50 years old. I'm an elder statesman, man." And I'm saying that he's saying what he was saying was, and I want you to do the same thing. He's saying the elder statesman, we got some stuff we need to be saying to them kids right now.
Yeah.
Right. That we ain't trying to knock your hustle, but we got to say something about y'all killing each other. We really do.
Exactly. And I did see Busta Rhymes' piece. Busta Rhymes did a piece also where he was sitting in the studio and he was talking to the people on his Instagram page, whatever. And he was basically saying the same thing, man. It's like we got to do something different to change it all. You know what I'm saying? It's like if we keep doing the same thing, keep saying the same thing, keep putting out the same energy, we just gonna keep getting the same thing. We got to change something. Something's got to change in how we doing things in order for that vibration to go out. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna hail. I'm gonna call down Amiri again. Right. One of the things that Amiri tried to tell the art community from the days of the Black Arts Movement up into his last day is that there is a such thing as a cooperative. There could be a cooperative arts movement. You understand? Where you're building things, pooling your resources together. There can be a Black Arts Consortium, right? Where you're building wealth by pooling your resources together. You're working together. You're not cutting each other's throat. You're not, doing these things that the larger capitalist order would rather have you do to divide you in the name of making markets, right? But pooling your resources together, you gather strength and you gather power.
Indeed. And yeah, I mean, and it's crazy we talking about because even me and my brother G, we in our early 50s and we just got back into a writing session today, talking about all of what we're talking about right now. You know what I'm saying? Just just change. We if we're gonna be the gatekeepers, we got to really stand guard and change some things. You know what I mean? So that's for that.
Speaking of Congressman Payne, one of the things that out of the Congressman Payne Senior, the Congressman Payne Senior, the things that they wanted to do in his father's name was conflict resolution, and how we learn to resolve things and talk to one another, have your differences, but sometimes we have to come to the table and then walk away to agree to disagree, but we all walk away and live to have a further discussion another day.
Right.
So that's some of the work that Congressman Junior was doing in the name of his dad, conflict resolution.
And you got to come to the table, period. You know what I mean? There's people that don't even want to come to the table. Like, how you gonna get things resolved if you don't even come to the table with that? You know what I'm saying? So that's a whole other level that we dealing with. You know what I mean? Is even having people come to the table with something.
And when I seen the picture, Rhino, I don't know why I seen them. They said that Takeoff was one of the more. He was the quiet one of the three. If you had to say,
let me tell you something. It's so crazy. Yeah, it's so crazy. I just was watching them. They were just on Drink Champs, like just a week prior to him being murdered. He was just on Drink Champs. You know what I'm saying? And him and Quavo together, they both look good. They both look like they were glowing, like they were ready for their next venture. You know what I'm saying? Because they just put out an album together, and then just a week later, man, just in the midst of all of that, you hear that he's just gone. I'm like, wow, like that's crazy, man. Like Takeoff, like somebody that when you hear some, it's kind of messed up. I mean, we all get caught up in the celebrity thing, man. But when you hear somebody who's a big celebrity though, and you hear them just gone like that, man, it shocks you. It really does shock you. I mean, it should shock you when anybody gets
right.
You know what I mean? But that was just crazy to me when I got the news that morning that he was gone. I was like, wow, he was just on Drink Champs a week ago, and they were looking real good and real positive. You know what I'm saying? Like, ready to move forward.
And when I seen the picture, because they had him standing like in the back of a crowd, it kind of made me think about the images of when Tupac and Biggie, when they both had got shot and how they were coming out of events and things like that. And it's just sad. But and then recently, Cardi B, I think I sent you the pictures. I think she was interviewed by Essence Magazine and had her and her husband, her husband had a family and all that. So these people, they have lives, like all the children. I think Cardi B and her husband, they have like 2 or 3 children. So you got children that, I don't know how many children Takeoff have, but I know they're all very close. And now they, how you explain daddy's gone, uncle's gone, goddaddy's gone. It's just,
Yeah. And a lot of people were trying to get into the whole thing about why they kind of had a separation with Offset. But I'm like, Offset was taking care of family. He had Cardi B and the kids. You know what I mean? He had his family, so he had to do his thing. But that ain't. I think people like to throw up other stories and other negative stuff that don't really got nothing to do with what's happening right there. I can tell you this, and to hear the news later that it was over, during a dice game, man. That really made it even more cheap and whack, man. Like, yo, what the hell is going on? That he can't just have some time celebrating and chilling, and he playing dice with some folks, and then somebody You know, and I heard, you know, it wasn't for him intentionally, like the.
Of course.
That's what I heard, that it wasn't for him, but you know, still, like, what's
Well,
going
they
on?
say bullets don't have no name, not yet.
Yeah,
I know they're trying to pass some legislation where you can have a number on a bullet.
But
but
Rhino, the thing what I heard, and you should go back and really check out, you know, what Fat Joe was saying, because I thought his commentary was dope, man. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He was saying that there needs to be something like an elders council. You know what I mean? And I like that. I like that idea, man. Right? Where all of the old hip hop artists, you know, kind of get together and have like a private meeting, right, with these younger brothers.
Way.
Not that we,
That's the African way.
Yeah, not that they want to tell them how to do their music, but he was saying there's some things that they learned about how to stay alive, right? Like he was saying after he would do a show, he said one of the things is that he could share is that he said he never hung around, right? Like you get together and you go outside. Like he went out and he's out there with some of the people that really might be envious or jealous of his success. You know what I mean? So you go out there trying to shoot dice with some regular folk. Well, you ain't regular no more, dude. You know what I mean? Like you now famous, right? I know you want to keep it real. You want to keep it 100, but them cats out there ain't got no rules, man. You know what I mean? And so he was saying that there were some things that he could share as an elder, right?
You got to know how to move when you at a certain level.
Right. He was saying that we need an elder council because we can share that and say, hey, man, now you famous, now you made it. You can do a lot for your community, but here's how you need to move now. And he even said this, Rhino, which is what I thought was dope, Zaid and Donna. He said there's nothing wrong with you hiring an off-duty police officer who got a legal right to carry a gun and roll with you. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
He said
security.
You got some movement with millions of dollars worth of jewelry on your neck, right? And he said, you got to think about that. Because he said, you got a family to come back to. The guy who shot them bullets don't give a damn about you whether you get home. But remember what the congressman would always say about, you know, he would say that if I kill you, you know, I'm just killing a regular person. If you kill me, right? Remember that rhyme that he always comes from. Yeah. And that's what I watch.
Rhino, are you watching 50 Cent's Power Canaan? Are you watching that series?
No, my wife does, but I
have to tell you, whoever his writers are, they just did the finale, and you know, his writers, that was a part of a subject matter in this section that there were some things that were going to happen, but before they happened, they had to go to the elders before it could happen. They couldn't just go and you know, there's a beef going on, and in the beef they were going to other neighborhoods, but before they did it, they had to go to the elders and get permission. They just couldn't come show up and cause all type of chaos and everything.
What show is this you're talking about?
Power, but it's a part of the prequel Canaan.
Canaan story. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have the star.
Yeah, it's a story of a little bit loosely based on him growing up, but how his writers, that last one, and I watched the last one probably like at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm running around the house like, oh my God, no! Like, but he really has some great writers that he's doing this with, and I was like wow.
Just like what Zaid said, though, that's the African way. You, like the elders, you're supposed to go to the elders to get their blessings before you make certain moves. You know what I'm saying? Because they have the wisdom to know whether or not you should make that move or not. You know what I'm saying? They've been there, they've done that. You know what I'm saying? That's why you come to the elders, because they've been there, they've done that. They've gone through the levels, they've grown. You know what I'm saying? They used to be the knucklehead, the young knuckleheads that you were. You know what I'm saying? But now they've grown, they've gone through the steps of life. And so they know. So yeah, you should come to the elders. And so that's why I big up LL Cool J with everything that he's doing with his whole Rock the Bells empire, what he's trying to build right now. Because he's really trying to do that. He's trying to build a place for hip hop in general, but he's trying to put the OGs in place in the right. You know what I'm saying? And I love what LL is doing. So big ups to LL. And again, big ups to Dougie Fresh and Chuck D and all of them that's trying to. I spoke about it on one of the past episodes that we had about this this union that they're trying to create, this alliance, alliance, and they're really trying to build something for that same purpose. You know what I'm saying? For having like an elder statesman type of a situation. So
I'm telling you, Rhino, that idea is dope. Because you imagine to have LL Cool J, Fat Joe, right? Buster Rhymes, right? You know, Eric B, all these guys. Could you imagine to have all of them? And then you know, you got all of them, and you got all these little young 20-year-olds now who are making millions of dollars. And these brothers actually sharing with you because you know,
or being hustled out of millions. All of them ain't making it.
That's right. That's right. And you know, and so all of that information these brothers still have. But the most important thing that I think, Zaid, that Fat Joe said, he said he knows how to stay alive. He now know how to stay alive.
Right? And remember, Fat Joe lost.
And he was. And Fat Joe, hold on a second, Donna. Fat Joe was talking about how he used to roll, and he was telling the truth, man. He was saying, "I done been in some, you know, in some world of shit, man." And he said, "I'm telling you, brother." He said, "I know how to stay alive." He said, "I can."
And I have to say, he lost one of his best friends. He lost Big Pun, and Big Pun, it was health reasons. But when I remember Big Pun dying, and he just releasing that record, like I'm about, and the record he said in the words, "I just joined the gym. I'm ready to live." And then, boom, you know, he wasn't with us anymore. So.
And I'm telling you, I just put that in some lyrics today when me and my man G was writing today. It was just talking about that. About you know how we got to a certain point in our lives where we realized that we got to stay around, we gotta exist. You know what I'm saying? We can't just be out here wilding. We gotta last and exist. You know, we got families now and things like that. We got futures that we trying to continue. You know what I mean? So
you want to walk baby girl down the aisle? That's right. You and G play good Uncle Bad when she bring her first date in. You know, that's like one of my from Bad Boys with Martin Martin and Will. They come to the door. Yeah, but those are things that you want to do. So, you know, as we growing up, and you know, you can help the next young people. And I know, the scenes in my mind when they said that he was taken away, you had the flashback of, like I said, of them leaving, and then knowing that where the Migos was probably going as they were growing up. Because when I had seen, like I'll repeat it again, you know, like Cardi and her husband, and you know how they were being interviewed and how they were being, you know, portrayed as a young family on the come up and everything. And now, you know, we're reaching a holiday where somebody is not going to have their loved ones there because of a dice game.
Yeah. So big ups to Offset and big ups to Quavo. They gotta keep their heads up through all of that. Big ups to you know, definitely Takeoff's family and fans and everybody, man. You know, that was crazy, man. But you know, going back to what we were saying about Rashad's son and you know his passing and his health issues, you know what I'm saying? That's something we got to talk about. And there was definitely a thread with that with Congressman when he brought up, you know, what he was going through on that episode when we had Rashad's son on there.
And remember, we said we had wanted to get them together too, and we, you know, like time is. But even Rashad's son, if you go back and we replay that interview, he was very intentional about talking about his health. And I remember he said, "Can I talk about how serious it is?" And he reflected on, you know, how he realized how when he got sick and what he had to do. And I think he was just coming from treatment when he came and did the interview. So
because he was on dialysis for a while.
Right.
For a while. And but yeah, he was a soldier through it all, man. You know, we talked a lot about it. You know, and we had intentions on doing some work together too, musically and all of that, you know, because we were kind of like-minded dudes. We were like-minded brothers on the same kind of vibration. So, you know, that was my brother, man.
He pulled off, and it was just listening to him, and you know when you know I was at a funeral and the pastor said when you got more days behind you than you have in front of you, you start thinking differently. And and how he was like, and he was humble. He was like, "Can I take this opportunity?" And you wanted to explain to us the importance of, things about our health and men in health. And then I know y'all were going over the album and what was the hottest one on the album and what was his
Yeah.
yeah.
If
So
I don't know if any of y'all ended up getting his album, but if you go to a song, you can pull it up on YouTube also. There's a song called Tears, where he talks about all of what he was going through in it with his health situations and everything. It's a touching song, man, but it's beautiful. Check it out. It's called Tears by Rashad.
Tears, yeah, put that. We had one of the guests on Rhino, and you know how we asked the song, "Who's your favorite artist?"
Mm-hmm.
And she brought up Toby and WeJ and the
Yeah.
song "Try Jesus." She said, "Have you listened to that one?" Like,
I think I saw clips of the video, man, but I haven't heard the whole
"Try
song.
Jesus, not me." He said, "Cause I throw hands up," and then we had. Yeah, so check that out because then one of the brothers from Institute of Social Justice said that his work is really good. So we got to check him out. His name is Toby and WeJ. So what else is going on out there? And
real quick, I want to
Congressman.
There goes the Congressman. Real quick, I just want to say happy born to Cool Rock Ski, who was the last standing of the Fat Boys.
The Fat Boy got the shirt.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Prince Marky D. Rest in peace, Buffy, DJ Doc Nice, the Human Beatbox. Cool Rock Ski is the last man standing in the Fat Boys, and today's his born day. I just want to say happy born to him. Also, real quick, we talk about a lot of the downside of what's been going on in hip hop, but I just want to big up Jadakiss. Jadakiss just started a coffee company with his father and his son. His father's been in the coffee business for some years, but they finally came together. The trio. The father, son, and grandson. And they came together for Kiss. It's called Kiss Cafe Coffee. I want to big them up, man. And the whole thing, man, is that Jadakiss and a whole bunch of hip hop artists are doing so many other things outside of music. You know what I'm saying? Bun B has Trill Burgers. Mia X has Mama Mia Food. Styles P with the Juices for Life. Nas with Sweet Chicken.
And Rick Ross with everything, right? He got like
everything.
20 things.
And Diddy with everything with the Ciroc and all of that. E40 got Good with the Spoon, and Ghostface got Killer Coffee. So there's a lot of business going on out there. A lot of hip hop business.
That's maturation.
Music.
And now what's Jadakiss called? And what is it called?
It's called Kiss Cafe Coffee.
Okay, Congressman, you look like you're on the Amtrak.
That's where I am. On the train. That's why I got the beats on.
What? Oh, you was in that same. What
Bose.
What buying that? You back in the seat behind you? You on Biden's train, the Delaware train, Biden's train. He catch that train. You're not on there with you.
Nah.
What's going on?
Believe me, he'd have a car. He'd have a car alone with the Secret Service.
Congressman, we had Reverend Tillard on, and he was reflecting on Reverend Butt's funeral today. And I know we had seen the vice president had came and stood in for representing. But he also talked about the shoes he felt when good Lord, I'm so tired. When Congressman so I can't just keep losing Adam Clayton Powell was there.
What did you just do to your volume, Donna? You just did something to your volume.
Regarding Pastor Butts, did you get to say any words or anything regarding his loss?
No, I sent condolences when I heard initially, and just an incredible man, and he's gone so young. He was so young. I didn't, so I was
Did he freeze?
Yeah, he's on a train, so they can go in and out.
Yeah, he froze. We definitely need to hear from him too. This is our last show with him before the election. We got to get some stuff out of him for real.
You might have to go a little bit over. Executive producer, sir. Congressman, we're gonna get we need both of those houses. What's going on?
He's going
Georgia's tight.
Back?
Yeah,
you back now. We got you now. You froze up for a minute.
You said
this our last talk with you before the election. What say you? Did you hear me?
Yeah, probably. Where you at between Delaware, Philly, and where you at between Philly and Delaware?
Probably
Baltimore, I think.
Baltimore. Okay.
Baltimore.
Baltimore. They call it BMO, don't they call it BMO?
It depends who's calling it.
BMO, yeah.
Yeah. So this is our last get down with you before the election. What say you about the election? How's it looking?
Georgia, Philly, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and what else is tight?
Also Florida.
Florida, Texas.
Down there with
Arizona, Nevada.
Wisconsin,
Michigan,
dude from West Orange,
Pennsylvania.
The astronaut from West Orange is having a tough fight in Arizona.
Yeah.
He's still frozen. He's having a tough time with his connection. We got to get him in. Go on back out and come back in. Yeah.
So real quick. Let me, if I can just throw this in. Tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Mount Vernon Public Library, 28 South First Avenue.
Oh, Timor is doing that. I meant to reach out to
Timor. Right. He's doing the hip hop event celebrating the 5 elements. Ralph McDaniels from Video Music Box is going to be there. MC Debbie D, one of the early female MCs in the game. She's back. She's doing a whole lot. She's been teaching hip hop and teaching a lot of stuff. She used to be one of the queens of the flyers, doing the flyers for the hip hop events in the early days. She's one of the pioneers, and she's doing a lot. She's going to be there.
MC Debbie
James Top, one of the legendary graffiti artists from back in the days. My man James Top, he's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of hip hop, a lot of pioneers, a lot of hip hop.
And where at again,
Rhino?
Mount Vernon Library.
Mount Vernon Library, Public Library, 28 South First Avenue.
Money making Mount Vernon.
Yeah. So that's going on tomorrow between 11 and 5 p.m. 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going to try to be at.
If you have anything, can you send it out to the group? Take a picture of it. If you're looking at a flyer, send it out to the group.
Yeah.
Timor has it on his page. I meant to reach out to him to come on, and I just lost track of the date. I owe all of y'all an apology on that because I definitely wanted to lift that up. That would have been a great segment for you, Rhino, for real.
Yeah. We got to get Timor on the show again. We had him on before years ago. Yeah, we got to.
You talking about Liberian Timor?
Yeah.
Because his wife is Liberian. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know.
No,
like Liberian. You got food in your mouth. I don't know what you're saying.
I know Timor from back in the day when he was a graffiti
artist.
Doing it with his name was Ezra. Yeah. So me and Timor go back.
And he's
all my people in hip hop, we knew each other from graffiti first.
He actually brought his graffiti. He brought his graffiti book to a pop meeting one day and just showed like he had an old notebook with all his graffiti work in it.
Yeah, and he still got it too.
Wow.
I be telling folks, tag Free Mumia.
Yeah.
Tag all power to the people. Tag learn, baby, learn and not burn.
Hey, man.
You want him to tag all this new construction?
All respect, man. That's what Jerry Gant was doing. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Ghetto stuff like that. Speaking truth. All that up there. You know what I mean? Respect to Jerry Gant.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I miss my little brother.
Yeah,
And
man.
it's so, I remember I
He
got to
lived
meet
long
him.
enough and got well enough just to get all that work in.
Yeah.
And he was working. And then he gave his own goodbye party.
Yeah, right.
There we go. Congressman. What say you before the election, sir?
I hear you.
We're gonna bring Pennsylvania home, Congressman. I don't, Dr. Oz, because MNOP, he would be sitting next to you.
It looks, Congressman, looks good. We can hear you, Congressman. Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Hello? That's a nice jacket you got. You like you got a flight jacket on.
Hey.
Yeah, I see.
Are we
Yes.
back?
Yes.
There you go.
Before we lose you, let's get it in.
What's your predictions before the election next week? We know you gonna do your work. We seen you walking in West Orange, supporting local people, local candidates. What's going on in Pennsylvania? You've been down there with Fetterman and all?
No, I haven't really traveled that much. Been doing what I can from Jersey, but we've been working our way into those different areas. But I haven't gone down myself. I think Corey in Pennsylvania with Fetterman, so trying to help out.
Okay.
And then I see that what's her name? Oprah endorsed him, Fetterman.
Oh, okay. And I
Over
see,
Dr. Oz, and that's who she created, Dr. Oz, really.
She did.
Yeah, look at that. And I seen Kerry Washington was down in Georgia working with Stacy. And Congressman was in Washington. I said Kerry Washington was down in Georgia working with Stacy. And Congressman Payne was in Washington walking with Barbie. That's what I said.
How about that?
That's right. I seen you walking in the streets in West Orange. Did you endorse any other candidates here in Jersey that we need to know about?
And yes, and the young lady in West Orange too, Asbury.
Okay.
Who is her partner, and then in Hillside, I endorsed Patrice for school board. So those are the three locals that I got involved with. I really should stay out of those things. Most people tell me, but several of them were good friends of mine, and had to
right.
Speak my piece. But I really shouldn't be getting involved in those local races like that. I mean, if I start, then I have 22 municipalities in my district that
everybody gonna want some.
Yeah, yeah. So it's best to try to keep that to a minimum.
Right.
Let me say something real quick because it's bothering the hell out of me, and we got to deal with this on our tech side. Whoever this 69 girls XYZ is, get the hell out of here, and we got to deal with that on our tech side. That should not be on our page. I don't know who put that up or who the hell they think they are, but they got not messing with bringing that dirt to all politics or local.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
as you were.
That sound like you got to do something about. Yeah, people are these infiltrators get into everything.
Yeah, we'll deal with that. Engineering in the back is very important. We don't post everything. I'm usually in the background saying what to post. So let me get in the background.
So Rhino, he's still there? He's not there?
Yeah, Rhino's right there.
Yo, did you tell him how you rock that party?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we talked about it.
Rhino had the party at the Capital One Center. You know, like
Um,
where the bullets play.
Yeah,
He had DJ. He DJ'd the whole center, man.
Showing the age
We
where
had
the bullets
we
play.
had
Capital
The age
One.
the
Yeah,
bullets
Capital
fall.
One
we had the
Center. Yep.
Capital One Center, man.
Yep. Yep. Did
Yeah,
our
d-
thing. Made it happen. Made it
I know
happen.
you did. I know you did.
absolutely.
and Congressman, you didn't hear. You would be happy to know we didn't know that Ronald was going to be there today, but he was doing things today, taking care of his health. And yeah, I was just saying in the beginning how you're a big advocate of men taking care of their health and showing up for them doctor's appointments. And that's so we're
Oh
glad he was
yeah,
here today. But he was here taking care of some business today. So
yeah.
Yeah,
um,
That's what's
had
up.
surgery yesterday morning. I had surgery. I was just getting a cyst removed from my back that I had
Okay,
for some time, but it was
okay.
getting bigger, and
Good. That's good. Yeah, you got
Pay
gotta get
attention.
rid of that stuff before it
Small
gets
things turn
serious.
into
You know?
big
got
things.
And
early is
my wife
to
was on
deal
me.
with
So,
that.
that's right.
Got to
Early
deal.
things.
Got to
That's
deal with
right.
it, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Don't let me come on and do a show about all the
We talked
things
about the
I'm
colon, the
sick.
diabetes, the amputee. We talked about it
yeah.
earlier.
Congressman, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the young brother that came on the show one time with you, and his name was Rashad's son. He was on dialysis at the time because he had diabetes, he had kidney problems, and he was on the show. He was a rapper from out here in Jersey,
Yeah.
but we
Brain
just lost
focus
him. We
too.
just lost him recently, though. We just lost
Yeah.
him very recently.
He came
Oh
on
wow.
right before you had the doctor on who was talking about black people and amputees. You
Yeah,
know, yeah.
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, God bless him. God bless him.
yeah, man.
And how old was he,
I've
Saeed?
been fortunate.
I believe
In my
he
life
was 51.
that
I think he was a year younger than me.
Oh, okay.
I've been fortunate in my life that I've had good doctors that have kept me, knock on wood, I'm still here.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta get on it early.
Yeah, I've had my
Gotta
share.
get on it early. Can't
But
play around,
also the legislation you changed that
Be a
sometimes we
man,
have
go
to
to the
get tested
doctor.
earlier too. You talked about that. We can't get tested like
Absolutely,
everybody else.
absolutely.
I really
No,
wanted to do something.
those numbers there. Those numbers they're using are for the majority population, and that
Right.
ain't us. So, we I when I started learning about it, they said go at 50. I was telling people to and I said go at 45. And the more I learned, I've been telling people go at 35. Black men go at 35 and let them test you
Mhm.
because it just impacts us earlier.
Yeah.
They
Impact
finally
us
did
earlier.
move the
They treat us different. If we don't have the right doctors.
Yeah, they finally moved it down for the majority population, I think to 45.
Good.
But I tell black men, you go at 40, 35, or 40,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just that serious.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just that
So
serious.
you're up. You're going to be up this way through the election.
Yes, ma'am. I'm on my way to NERC.
All right. So you ready for these last 4 days?
Got to be. We got to
Mhm.
make some things happen. I want to stay in the majority so I can keep that chairmanship.
And
We
Congressman,
got a
can you
lot.
tell
We got
me
a lot riding on this.
at Essex County?
We lose all our chairmanships.
Bro,
So
Essex County got to come out 100%. Tell them, Congressman, right now they got to get out and vote.
absolutely, listen, it doesn't cost you anything. It is pivotal. It's pivotal in your life because if you're not involved in it, then you can't complain. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And the problem is a lot of people don't vote. And like I
Yeah,
said,
that's right.
it's like a half an hour of your day on your way to school or work or coming home. It's right in your neighborhood. You got to go past the place. It's only 2-3 blocks from your house, maybe. So take that half hour and go and do it. But now they got it even easier. You can vote by mail. Sit at your kitchen table, fill it out, and you put it in the mail. So,
But that
in some states, they're trying to make it easier, so let's utilize it.
that's exactly what we were talking about a few minutes ago, Congressman, about this voter education, right? A lot more of these folks could win if there was a bigger turnout, right? The problem is we're not getting turnout. And who's that young guy right there?
Hey, look at that. Look at that, looking all, working hard. All right.
Yeah, who's that young guy? You know what I mean?
And tomorrow, what's going on in Newark to help people learn about voting?
Well, we'll be at the library, Zaid got the rundown,
Absolutely.
And what's the rundown, Zaid?
We got the elders from the 1972 Gary Convention. We got Mama Mina Baraka. We got Junius Williams Esquire and city historian, and we got Lawrence Amadimo Chunga, the long distance runner for the People's Organization for Congress. They were all there in 72, and they're all out here now trying to sound the drum. This is no time to be on the sidelines on the question of the ballot. No time at all. The time is now to stay the hand of the right wing, halt the hand of fascism. If democracy is on the ballot, that means we either gonna save democracy or we're gonna be its prime targets. We need to be clear about that.
Yep.
1 o'clock, James Brown African American Room, Newark Public Library. Don't miss it.
We'll give the Congressman the last word.
Yeah, and Ed, I thank you for offering me the opportunity to sit on that panel, but things just didn't work out. I was down in Washington longer than I thought, and really should have stayed down, but I'm coming up, so I might try to get there to the library, but thank you for the opportunity. Your request and asking me to sit on the panel, I'm honored, but things couldn't work. I worked things out.
I got it. I know, man.
Totally get it.
You my brother. I know if you didn't confirm, I know something was up. It's all good.
You're doing the pre event right now, telling people to get out and vote.
Absolutely. But that's a magnificent panel that you put together there. I don't even think I'm worthy to sit on that panel, to be honest.
And Congressman, we didn't have time to tell you. I know Nancy Pelosi is a good friend of yours. We're sending, could you from us through you send our love for her and her family, and you be safe as well. This is crazy days.
And her husband is lucky as hell. You hit that man inside his head with a hammer.
Yeah.
So you,
but
your
they,
family,
you know,
be careful, but
when you hear,
love.
when you hear Ms. Pelosi talk about it, it's going to be a long time before he's back to any health. The way she says it, she keeps talking about it. It's a long, long journey. We have a long journey ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was crazy. But it's a reflection of this moment we're in. And it's why we can't be on the sidelines. Because they want to come like that.
Yeah.
That's right. Republicans haven't said a word about it. Half of them haven't said
the Republicans.
That's right.
Yeah. Wait till when we go back to Congress, I'm going to the floor and I'm going to admonish them from the floor. Tell them how despicable they are.
Right. And that's somebody who, he's not the candidate, he's the husband, and he's laying on his couch. So yeah.
What a shame.
Well, listen, y'all, we want to wrap up and thank everybody for coming through.
Good show tonight.
It was
And happy belated birthday to Principal Cafele, and thank you for shouting out those people who were posting ignorant things. Thanks, Principal Cafele, for bringing that up.
Yep. So, Zay, you want to thank everybody that was on?
Yeah, shout out to these promising young women doing great things in their community, running for office. Carol Ruiz and Dover, Atalaya Armstrong and Trenton, and Felicia Simmons in Asbury Park. Good luck to all of you. We hope you all do very well. We know we'll be in better hands if you do, right? Principal Cafele said we heard the shout out, says thank you. We got to get you on, brother. All right, we got to get you on, right? Our young men and our young folks from the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, Yannick Wood and Henal Patel, breaking it down on what the challenge of voting rights means for New Jersey, right? And of course, we had Conrad Tillard talking about the late great Reverend Calvin Butts, and we take the night out with the Payne report and our own Congressman Donald Payne Jr. It's been a powerful week, powerful show, and we will see y'all next week. And you don't stop.
And we sending our continued love to Rashad's son's family, Takeoff's family, Pelosi family, and most important, everybody. November 4th, I want to see Essex County come out with 100% voter turnout. Get out and vote. Voting has consequences, and your vote definitely will make a difference.
Vote.
All right.
It'll be the ballot or the bullet.
See y'all next time on
Gotta vote.
Local. We thank y'all for joining America's number one political hip hop radio show. We'll see y'all next week.
And you don't stop.
Number one.